Hello, romance lovers. Today I have a story for you called It's My First Time Being Loved. Don't forget to support this video with a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new interesting stories. Thank you for watching. The events of the manga begin with a young lady listening to a couple of people asking to be saved. It turns out to be a man in his 30s. He claims that this is the last request of the young lady's old father, and also asks if everything won't be resolved thanks to her intervention. The woman supports her husband and cries out that they can survive if the girl sacrifices herself, but she makes the father fall to his knees. The young lady's brother asks if she wants to shame the family that raised her all this time, and she should live up to her name and become a heroine. There is only one thought spinning in the girl's head, and that is how tired she is of them, because her relatives are talking such nonsense and making too much noise. The woman then asks if the young lady thinks that it is good for her to sacrifice the daughter she raised with love, but now at the moment when she can repay them for their favor. The girl then asks with a sarcastic smile on her face, what does it mean with love, and is love for a woman really like abandoning a child in an icy room without any attention? But how shameless they are. The young lady's family is shocked by these words, and the girl understands that something like this has happened more than once or twice. She turns to her relatives and tells them not to worry, but the girl herself does not understand why they are picking on her. The young lady claims that she will save them, but she thinks that it is because no one else can stop the destruction of this world. The brunette has lived 99 different lives, and in the concept of their accumulation, a mysterious power also accumulates because saving the world at the cost of her life has never been such a great thing for her, and she does not regret it. However, he does not want to see the boasting of good deeds by shameless people. The father then thanks his daughter a little awkwardly and says that thanks to her, their family will be able to live normally again. The girl wonders when they will stop playing family because it doesn't work. The girl says that he even knelt down, after which he extends his hand, asking if this should not come at a high price. Taking her staff in her hands, the young lady claims that her life is miserable and has not yet reached good times. Stays with them. The woman asks what she's talking about, but at that very moment, Brookie receives an article that says that the heroine who will save the world had cruel parents. At that very moment, one of the servants bursts into the room and shouts to the master that they have problems. After all, the Imperial troops who decided to check the veracity of the article invaded the mansion. The father then screams for the girl to come back immediately because how dare she do such a thing? Because she knows what will happen if she tarnishes the family's honor. When the young lady is already moving away from them, she only hears how they call her ungrateful and thinks that it would be better if her first family was from a noble family. In my first life, my parents considered starting a family to be just one item on my life's to-do list. Unfortunately, two were born. The young lady and her brother lived in absolute indifference from their parents. Well, even though the girl was never loved by her family, she liked people because, like her parents, she was straightforward, so her affection was immediately noticeable, to friends who always lend a helping hand. But one terrible day, the last thing the main character saw was her friend anxiously reaching out her hand, trying to save the girl. But unfortunately, it did not help, and the main character, lying on the asphalt and also looking at her friends, thought that thank God everything is okay with them. So on the threshold of her 20th birthday, she said goodbye to life without having enjoyed the end of the entrance exams. However, it was purely her choice. In her next life, she found herself in a world on the verge of extinction. The only hope to prevent its destruction was to go into eternal sleep. In her first life, she sacrificed herself for her friends, and then every person screamed that it was her duty to sacrifice herself for them. Until her 5th or 6th life, she always hoped that everything would be fine in the future. But this is already the 99th time. When a girl grabs her staff, she thinks how boring it is, because even now in life, there are no regrets. But the most terrible thing is to see how the world turns into chaos if the moment when destruction could have been prevented was missed. People look at the sky in shock and ask what is there? And the main character looking at them understands that having such great power, she felt like they were blaming her for not saving them. And no matter how insensitive she becomes, she doesn't want to see something like that. And little children must still live. The young lady rises higher and higher, with the understanding that in this life she again did not live to be 20. 17 years is the average life expectancy of a girl. Using the spell, she asks for all this to end. The young lady understands that there is no hope, but such stupid desires are a matter of habit, after which the 99th death came. But when the girl opened her eyes again, she saw the maids who were congratulating their mistress and saying that she had given birth to a girl. The main character understands that this is her 100th, but she hoped that this would be the end of it, because 100 is a 3-digit number, But if this is the basis of a new life, then you need to adapt and adjust. The girl understands that she has poor eyesight and thinks what the maids are doing. And the girls at this time say how the baby looks like the mistress. The main character then thinks whether this is an aristocratic mansion, but she starts to get nervous because she can't use her powers on her first birthday. When the woman holds the baby, the maids say how cute she is, but suddenly someone else bursts into the room. The maid then asks if the gentleman has arrived, and they say that he has such a beautiful daughter. The main character then tries to take a closer look at her father, but when she directs her gaze at him, she is very scared. For the first time when she saw his face, she thought that this life would go to ruin for her. When the father already reaches out his hand to the baby, she becomes very scared and wonders whether she will fall into eternal sleep immediately after birth. But when this world is on the brink of destruction again, she will not be able to do anything, and will most likely only be able to watch the chaos. How lives disappear before our eyes and souls disperse like dust. The girl will only watch this as if it were a nightmare from which she will not be able to wake up, and which will continue until the world takes its last breath. The main character would like to live and experience all the torment herself. But suddenly the little girl feels her father simply touching her cheek and does not understand what just happened. The man with pink hair only thanks their youngest daughter with tears of joy for her safe birth. The main character is then in complete shock and does not understand what is happening. And when she looks up, she sees her mother, who is also very happy. And the little girl does not understand why they have such happy faces and how everything has suddenly changed. The young lady's mother says that the baby is very similar to her. And the main character thinks that if everything is really normal there, then perhaps her 100th life will be quiet and calm. While the baby's parents are talking to each other, the girl is watching. And a second later, she is already called Anastasia. The main character thinks that it is quite a beautiful name. And the girl's parents also add that this is the name of the heroine who saved their world. Anastasia then realizes in shock that every time the heroine's name was mentioned, her life was like a gutter and she was already tired of it. So the girl wondered if she would sacrifice herself again and become a savior. But how stupid she was when she expected that this time everything would be different. Because everything, on the contrary, is worse and it is annoying. While the baby is being held by the father, someone else enters the room. It turns out to be a girl with pink hair, and she asks if this is her sister. A little while later, the main character is already lying in bed and thinking that, surprisingly, nothing special happened. And the little girl was ready for a heroic name, but she understands that it is too early to breathe a sigh of relief. After all, it was like that in her past life. Her father said that a child with a heroic name is blessed by God, and he pretended to be good. But in the end, he began to mock her, frightened by her powers. It was as if he wanted to check how helpless she was in front of her parents. And these parents also gave her the name of a heroine precisely in order to sacrifice her. And there is nothing left to do but be on guard. The girl did everything to understand the surrounding environment. The woman with jet black hair and bright red eyes is the main character's mother in this life, and when she rocks the baby, then she immediately falls asleep, so you have to be careful, because you never know when you might fall into a trap. And the pink-haired man with the appearance of a wolf and the size of an entire mountain is her father. The man turns to his daughter with a smile and asks if she has forgotten her dad yet, since he doesn't see his face very often. The little girl thinks that he is talking to her in a strange voice and wonders if this is psychological pressure. The little girl also noticed that there was always someone near the cradle, so they must be watching the newborn baby, and this family is quite scary. But suddenly the girl hears someone approaching and wonders if it is the Duchess, and being an aristocrat is even more annoying. However, hearing that the sounds are getting louder, the girl turns her head and thinks about what is going on there. It turns out it's the young lady's father. He asks what the problem is since it's their daughter. The main character does not hear what he says next, but she understands that he is talking about her, and the girl also wonders if her father is angry with her, and they will soon arrive there. The young lady's father then cries out and asks why, if their little girl is not sick, she is not crying or laughing. And the main character is shocked and wonders if her father made such a fuss just because she wasn't crying. The man with pink hair then says that it is clear, and the doctor does not know the reason because he is incompetent, so nothing can be done. And there is no other choice but to get rid of this useless head. The main character then thinks in shock what he is doing and whether he will plunge a person into eternal sleep just because the child does not cry. And the girl thinks whether this is a new form of torture. In her past life, the young lady's parents hated to hear her cry, and she did not cry lest she be put into eternal sleep. And the girl thinks that there is nothing to worry about because her life is more important to her. At this time, the doctor, with tears in his eyes, cries out that he checked everything thoroughly and the lady is truly completely healthy. The main character, hearing this, understands that the doctor makes her feel guilty, so she decides to save him anyway and thinks that she is quite healthy. So let her father not touch an innocent person. At that very moment, the baby starts crying and the father turns around in shock from what he heard. He immediately smiles and runs up to his daughter, after which he picks her up and says that their baby has such a loud voice. The main character wonders if he is really happy because until now, when she screamed loudly, bad things happened. And she doesn't understand why this man has such a happy face. But the girl still understands that she needs to be on guard, but she cannot stop crying. When the father took the young lady in his arms, she saw someone else's gaze, and she wonders if this is her older sister. The girl understands that since she was called the youngest, she assumed that she had brothers or sisters. But until this moment, she had not met them, and now she is more worried than happy. After all, due to her special abilities in her past life, all the attention went to her brother, and she was not the favorite child. Now, looking at the little girl, she understands that she shouldn't give in to those cute, puffy cheeks. Because if the girl gets upset or cries, then of course her parents will listen to her. While the little girl is still staring at the main character, she seems to freeze in anticipation. And then the girl with pink hair starts talking and asks if it's true. This little girl is her little sister because she is so cute. The main character then looks at her older sister in shock. And she jumps in the arms of the little girl and says with admiration that she has such a beautiful sister. Then she turns to her father and says that she and Asia want pudding. And the man then asks, what does it mean with Asia? After which, the little girl says that Lorencia is Lara, and Anastasia will be shortened to Aja. The main character then thinks, what kind of cute behavior is this? And she doesn't like it at all, so she waves her little hands. But her relatives perceive this gesture differently, and her father, with a smile on his face, asks if their Anastasia likes this nickname. The girl understands that she does not like it at all. The man with pink hair says that he understands the little girl's good intentions, but Anastasia is still young and cannot have pudding. After which he strokes his daughter's head and says that if she eats for two, then he is sure that the girl will be happy. But Lara says that if she eats everything alone, Aja will be upset, and her father asks why. And then the little girl says that she was recently sick and ate only soups, so she was very sad that she couldn't eat sorbet. The main character then wonders if her sister is worried that she will be upset. And the little girl with pink hair asks if the girl can eat just one piece. The main character at this time understands that if she eats it, she will die immediately. But when her sister brings the dessert even closer, the little girl mentally asks her father to do something. But he only approaches the little girl and asks what she is saying, after which he claims that Dad heard everything. The main character wonders what he is doing. And after this, the man turns to his daughter and says that the little girl said, let Lorencia eat all the most delicious things alone, which makes the little girl ask if this is true. And at the same second, he eats dessert and then apologizes. She hands her reindeer to the little girl and says that she will then lend her her toy. The father turns to Lawrence and asks if everything will be okay because she can't sleep without the fawn. But the little girl says that, yes, and Asha is her younger sister. So since she is older, she should share. The main character is completely shocked by such words and understands that this cannot be. After which she screams and realizes that she can't stay vigilant and that they shouldn't be so kind to her. The little girl then worriedly asks Asya if she doesn't like the little deer. And the main character mentally asks them to hate her like other families did in their past life. But the lady with pink hair just stretches out her hands to the girls and asks if she likes rabbits or tigers. These will have to be or for her. So let the baby not cry. Anastasia then, in shock, thinks why the girl doesn't hate her, but she just tells Asya to look at her. When the main character looks at the girl, she sees that she has closed her eyes. But at that very moment, the little girl opens them and makes a funny face, which makes the young lady unable to hold back her laughter. But at the same moment, the girl realizes that she has let her guard down. However, it is too late. Her father and sister with puppy eyes look at her again and admire her, and the main character understands that she has failed. After that, rumors that Anastasia smiled while playing peekaboo with her sister spread like wildfire. The maids did nothing but try to make their mistress laugh in the same way, and even the chief physician did his best. The man claimed that when he played with his daughter, she immediately laughed even if she had just been crying. And the main character understands that naturally her father followed the same path and tried to make a face. Of course, the mother chased everyone away, telling them to let the baby rest. Now, the main character, holding on to her mother's dress, understands that she has never seen such enemies and does not know what to do. Give up or get angry when they behave like this. The young lady's father is still in the hallway asking the servants if the baby has smiled, and the doctor says that he will also try harder. The young lady at this time thinks why they are going out of their way. After all, she can't understand it at all. In the afternoon, another guest came to the little girl. It turned out to be a boy with pink hair who asked Anastasia if she was awake. The girl, seeing her brother, was a little scared. She understands that he is her 5-year-old older brother, Damien, who, despite his young age, is receiving an education as the heir to the duchy. The girl thinks that he is busy. So why did he come to her and does not understand whether she should be vigilant with him? But the boy only turns to Anastasia and asks what she is thinking about, after which the little girl does not understand how she can survive. And Damien at this time says that the girl made such a serious face, but she will receive a gift. The main character becomes a little wary after these words and thinks that it is a little strange because everyone wants to give her something and it is very suspicious. When the baby sees some claws, she gets a little scared, but then he realizes that it is just a toy tiger. The boy claims that it is his toy, and Lorencia says that in order to make the little girl smile, you need to make an interesting grimace. But she also mentioned his tiger, and the boy was sad because he spent his entire childhood with it. But he still decided to give it to Anastasia. The main character understands that for him this is not just a toy. So why does he give her such a valuable thing? But the boy just strokes her head and asks if he will show her. The baby smiles at him. The main character then thinks about the radiator, whether he gave such a value. And is it true that all these people want to see her smile so much? But even her brother and sister are ready to sacrifice a lot for this. And the main character does not understand how this can be so important, and whether it is all about protecting the whole world. But then she still can't hold back her smile and sincerely lifts the corners of her lips. The boy is surprised by this, and then delighted, he cries out that their Anastasia really smiled. Looking at her brother's happy face, the main character understands that over many lives she has learned to always be on guard. But since today is such a good day, you can believe in a miracle just once. When her family heard that the baby was smiling, they came immediately. And the main character understands that even though she has been disappointed many times, she will still hope for her 100th life and that these people will not turn away from her. The girl will live with this desire. A little while later, she had already tried on many outfits. And having picked the best of them, the maid said what a cutie their mistress was, because she was like a snow fairy. The young lady's mother also picks her up and says that the girl is like an angel. After which he says that they buy everything and let them pay the tailor 4 times more for these clothes. The little girl then realizes in shock that she doesn't even know how to react to this, but it started several weeks ago. In her 5th month of birth, she was finally able to see more than her cradle. Although she crawls on her stomach, she has climbed many places thanks to this. And even though she still coos, she can say a few words even now. The next time you try to say something, she notices her father in front of her, who is also already lying on the floor, and asks what she is saying and says only that she loves her dad. The girl immediately crawls away in the other direction and realizes that she still can't pronounce these words properly. She realizes that she really is like an ordinary child. And if there is a threat to her life, she will not be able to escape, because all her strength is spent crawling. But the little girl understands that for now everything is surprisingly peaceful. But what is even more amazing is that, so this is this family. When the little girl looks to the side, she sees not only her father there. Her older sister cries out joyfully that Asha has turned over. And the father says with admiration that this is indeed so. The brother claims that their youngest is very agile, and it seems she turned over earlier than ordinary children. And the woman says that her son took it right out of her mouth and that Anastasia is definitely extraordinary. So they decided to throw a celebratory party in honor of her first coup. And now, sitting on a chair, the main character understands that this is the first party in her life to celebrate turning onto her back. The girl understands that this event is only for family members, but she still doesn't understand why it's so large-scale. The boy, holding a box in his hand, says that this is a gift for Anastasia, and the doctor, with tears in his eyes, tells the lady that he is very glad that she is growing up healthy. Then someone else addresses the young lady, and when the little girl turns around, she sees a maid there. The woman says the baby did a great job with the rollover. And it's amazing. The maid also says that she is happy to serve the mistress. The main character then understands that they say that when parties take place, the participants also receive bonuses. But this is only the baby's first coup. So why all the fuss? After all, everything here seems unusual to her. They all have excessive attachment, and the more they care, the more the main character worries. When the family went outside, the young lady noticed that they were setting off fireworks. And looking at them, the little girl felt better. Suddenly, the young lady's mother turns to Anastasia, and he says that from this day on, let her grow up big and healthy. The little girl understands that she doesn't have to be good or successful. She just needs to be healthy. But the girl does not understand what all this means, because these words sounded innocent. The next day, the girl found herself in a room in complete silence. And she understands that yesterday there was nothing but noise, and today it's quiet. After yesterday's party, the maid's vacation began, after which they said goodbye to their mistress and asked if she would grow up too quickly, since they would be back soon. And only one maid did not leave. The main character, looking at her, understands that she is most likely not even 20, and also now the maid is dozing. Well, that's understandable, because children need to sleep well in order to grow, and it's probably because the city is very busy at the end of the day. But even the parents left early and the house was empty. The young lady's brother sits quietly at his lessons, and the sister is sick and has to rest. The main character thinks that this is great and such an opportunity rarely arises. But at such moments, you need to practice getting back on your feet. And the baby's goal is to climb onto the chair. The girl understands that she was told not to grow too fast, but she already really wants to walk. And when she reaches for the chair, she realizes that there is just a little bit left. Well, suddenly someone picks up the baby. And you happen to be one of the maids, and she asks if the girl is having a good time. The main character, when she looks at the maid and thinks that she sees her for the first time. The woman at this time says that the mistress ordered to bring her, and the girl is a little surprised and thinks, isn't her mother away now? But the woman won't even wake up the maid. The main character then realizes that she's already been through something like this once or twice, and this situation is very suspicious, so there is no other way out. After which, the little girl immediately starts screaming, which makes the maid a little scared. And at the same moment, he closes the baby's mouth. After which, with an evil smile on his face, he says that it is good to take care of her. While the main character's strength begins to leave her, yes, she thinks that it was too calm, and the maid tells her to sleep a little. A little while later, the girl feels shaking, discomfort, and strange sounds. After which, she immediately opens her eyes and sees in front of her no longer the woman who took her, but a man who is running as fast as he can. So the main character wonders if she has really been kidnapped. Looking behind the man's back, the little girl sees, believe me, and understands that fortunately, he has not yet run far. But the little girl thinks that she was too careless. She should have been more wary of her surroundings. But the girl thinks that she needs to pull herself together and be glad that it was just a kidnapping. After all, everything could have been much worse, and she would have had to watch it all over again. The girl clenches her fist and understands that she is only 6 months old, and in such a situation, she could not do anything. So she does not understand what will happen now, and maybe she will be able to find out the destination. The girl understands that it is a little stressful, but she will be able to use the power of teleportation. But she is curious why she was kidnapped. Because this is a crime against the Duke. Or they could have learned about her power. But in any case, the risk is worth it to learn the truth. And the girl thinks whether it will be possible to split them in 1 or 3 days. But the little girl understands that during this time, she will not be able to return home. However, she will try to resolve everything as soon as possible because she does not want the family to worry too much. Therefore, send a message through a dream that he will return soon, and then they will be much calmer. But suddenly, an arrow flies into the leg of the guy who is carrying the young lady, and he collapses to the floor in pain. The man is shocked and wonders what this is, but suddenly someone tells him to shut up. The baby thinks that she is in pain from hitting the floor, but she hears a child's voice. And when he turns around, he sees a boy with blonde hair pointing a ball at the man and asking what he is doing now. After all, this lady has a meeting with him today. The main character, leading the boy, does not understand who he is. And the man asks if this is really the Duke's son, after which he immediately gets up and screams for the boy to get out of the way. The main character thinks that she is seeing this guy for the first time, when the other knights approach the blonde and shout that the younger duchess is with that man. The man, running further and further, wonders if he has already been noticed. But so little time has passed. Well, suddenly someone catches up with the attacker and says that if he doesn't want to fight, then he should just give up the mistress. The man tells the boy to stop following him because he has his own reasons. Well, the blonde then coldly says that if he tries to justify himself, he will really stab him. Anastasia understands that this guy seems to be the same age as her brother, but he is so fierce. But the girl understands that this cannot be considered just a show, because the guy holds the ball firmly and correctly. And besides, this boy has magic, and his magical energy is so strong that it reaches the ball, so the girl does not understand who he is. But the guy only takes out his ball and attacks the man, after which he collapses on the floor. The main character sees them falling and thinks that this is too much, but she will have to use protective magic. But at the last moment, when she should already touch the floor, she realizes that this is not happening. When she opens her eyes, she sees that she is in the arms of that same boy, and he asks how the baby feels. He also asks if she is very scared and if it hurts anywhere. But if she is not crying, then most likely everything is fine. The girl realizes that she is okay, but then she sees that the man behind her starts to get up. And the main character thinks that he should be vigilant because even if he is good in battle, he is still a child. After which, the little girl understands that there is nothing she can do anyway and uses her power. While the blonde guy takes out his sword, the main character already manages to wound the attacker. The boy is then surprised and says that he didn't do anything, but the man had already fallen. Then he looks at the main character and is a little surprised. The little girl feels just disgusting. Her lungs feel like they've been crushed, and the girl thinks she needs to be more careful about using her strength in a child's body. The guy then excitedly asks what happened and whether the little girl was scared, and whether she was cold. But the girl thinks that he was the most scared there. The guy begins to take off his cape and then wraps it around the baby, and he claims that everything is fine because it will soon become warm. The girl then thinks that this cape is quite soft, but she still feels pain after using magic. At this time, the villain is already captured by the knights, and the young lady's brother runs up to her. He excitedly calls Anastasia and tells her to open her eyes because her brother has arrived. The man who kidnapped the girl will beg the master almost her children because he had reasons, so he asks to listen to him. At this time, the main character cannot bear all the pain and falls asleep. The main character's brother, seeing his sister in such a deplorable state, says that the man will go with them, and before their father returns, he will figure everything out. A little while later, the main character hears her mother say that she thought it was too early because the baby was still small, but if something like this happened, she needed to act. The man says that, and for the sake of the children, he will try to do everything as quickly as possible. And the young lady at this time opens her eyes and thinks how long she slept. But the first thing she saw was her worried parents, and the little girl wondered if it was really mom and dad. Those who had been screaming for a second that Anastasia had woken up and that she should immediately call a doctor to Luga. Then looking at his daughter, the father asks if their little girl was very scared. But the father should have been there, but he thought that the order to His Majesty was more important. The main character thinks that the order is really more important because her father is a duke. The girl remembers that she lost consciousness only because she spent a lot of energy, and her body reacted this way only because it was not ready. But suddenly the main character hears her parents apologizing and is a little surprised by this. When she looks at their regretful expressions, she thinks that these people are so kind to her, and she doesn't want to hurt them. The girl thinks that she needs to grow up quickly. A little while later, the young lady is already in front of a whole squad of knights, who, kneeling, cry out that they will be faithful to their mistress. The little girl wonders who all these people are, and her father says that now they will protect her, and asks if the girl thinks that they are enough. The main character understands that the reason for the kidnapping was very banal, because the son of the maid working in the mansion had unbearable debts, and people who were deep in debt saw her parents spending a lot of money on her. So they stupidly decided to kidnap her during her vacation and exchange her for money. But fortunately, the friend of the young lady's elder brother quickly found them and stopped them. They say that the kidnappers drove them out of the mansion with several fractures, and also said that their parents were lenient towards them. But the girl in any case thinks that the guard is a good solution for her sister and brother, but to introduce 20 people to the little one, and that is too much. The young lady's father turns to Anastasia and says that these are knights who have sworn allegiance to her, so let her say something approving to them. The main character is then shocked and thinks that it's a pity a child can say at 6 months. And who would be happy with words of encouragement from a child? But suddenly, she sees how the knights immediately worry that they will try. They all resolutely affirm once again that they will try, and the main character understands that they are already happy, but she still can't understand them. After which, she looks away, and she coos. But by this, she means that the knights should take care of her. The entire squad is embarrassed by this and then screams that they will do everything possible to take care of the lady. And the main character understands that it is time to realize reality. A month has passed since the knights took their oath, and 2 people are guarding her room from the inside, and 2 more are outside. The girl understands that the older she gets, the easier it is for her to reach inaccessible places, and when she is a year old, it will be even easier. But she is only 7 months old. The last kidnapping was just for money, but it looks like she'll be put in an awkward position quite often. After all, on the day of the abduction, her parents left with tense expressions on their faces. And usually they do not leave home together because this family of the Duke is ready, they definitely have enemies. After all, it would not be so that the children would not be presented with guards, and there are no other reasons to place only knights. The main character then thinks whether she should try to use force now, but within the limits of her capabilities. But then she realizes that it is better not to do this. After all, if she has a high temperature again, her parents will start to worry, and she doesn't want to see those faces. But the little girl also doesn't want to sit idle, because it is her responsibility to stop the fall of the world. When the girl is already grabbing a chair, someone asks where she is going in such a hurry, and the little girl thinks that it is a very familiar voice. When she turns around, she sees her brother, who spreads his arms for a hug, after which the baby begins to crawl towards him, and a little while later they are already hugging. The guy says that his little sister crawled so quickly, but their Anastasia is already so big. The main character understands that this is a child telling her. When her brother strokes her baby's head, she thinks that his facial expression is different from usual. The boy tells Anastasia that his friend wants to see her and she has already met him. The main character then realizes that it is that blonde guy and just nods her head. The young lady's brother then asks if she wants to meet him again, and the little girl agrees. The girl understands that she was worried about this because the boy has magic and he is definitely a stranger to her, but she feels like she knows him. If you are often reborn, you can meet familiar people in other worlds, because every human soul has its own waves, and usually when meeting a familiar soul, it does not pay attention to it. But this boy is not just an acquaintance, because she feels this strange feeling of longing. And the girl understands that this is a great chance because she needs to find out who that boy really is. Sister's reaction is silent for a while, and then says that it seems that Mikhail has captured his sister. At this time, someone informs the younger Duke that they have arrived, and the blonde says that time flew by quickly, after which he gets out of the carriage and says that then he would go and meet the Duchess. A little while later, he was already in the room with the Duchess and was saying that they had finally met. The little girl sits on a chair near two maids and understands that he has arrived. And the blonde guy then approaches the little girl and says that it's amazing because she's so small, after which they exchange glances. And the girl thinks that she seems to remember something, but she can't remember. But in 2,000 years, she has met only a few such people and should recognize them immediately. The young lady's brother asks Mikhail what he is doing because he didn't even say hello, and the guy just waves his hand in front of the baby, after which the young man with different hair says that their Anastasia is not a doll to him, and the blonde says that the baby is still a child. The young lady's brother then approaches her and tells the boy not to call her Anastasia, since she is the younger Duchess. The main character wonders if her brother is too excited, and after the blonde laughs, Damien asks why he laughed. And the little girl understands that her brother is acting like a child. The girl thought he was calmness itself, but she is glad to see him when he is his age. The blonde then says that one way or another he should introduce himself, after which he approaches the girl, and he takes her hand in his, claiming that he is glad to meet the younger Duchess and that he himself is Michael Leventis from the family of the Archduke, after which the boy kisses the young lady's hand, which makes the little girl and her brother very surprised. Michael Leventis is the only heir of the Archduke, and after their first meeting, he spent more than half a month at their home. Since the current Archduke is very busy with political affairs, the boy decided to study with his childhood friend, and thanks to this, recently all the interest of the maids has been occupied by Michael. They talk about him even more than about their family, and now the maid, who is near the young lady, says that the boys came today. The main character, seeing the guy, understands that he is definitely only friends with her brother, but she does not understand why he comes to her so often. The little girl realizes that he arrived earlier than usual today, and the blonde runs up to the girl and asks if she is doing well. When the guy runs closer, the little girl feels that something has dripped on her and wonders if it is really water, because it is a little cold. Mikhail then, with wet hair from which water was dripping, apologizes and asks if she dripped on him, but then claims that he could not come to the Duchess in an inappropriate form, so he washed himself. The main character thinks that he speaks beautifully and does not look like a 6-year-old boy, but in fact he is still a child. And then the guy takes out a beautiful red stone, which is worth quite a lot, and asks the little girl if she will smile if he gives it to her. The main character understands that the young man with blonde hair is at it again and thinks that for some time now he has been giving endless gifts in order to make her smile. A few days ago, the boy asked why the girl wasn't smiling, and the maids told the Duke with what seemed like pride that few had seen their youngest Duchess smile. He needs to get close to her, then maybe he will see this smile, because the baby does not show it to anyone, and so far, only a few lucky ones have seen it. The guy then asked if it was true, and from that very day, the young man with blonde hair began to look for something that she would like. But he couldn't do it. And the young lady's brother said that it was useless because Anastasia only smiled at him. And the young lady's sister, with a smile on her face and confidence, said that she did the same. The guy got a little angry about this and gave in to an innocent provocation from his brother and sister. After which, as soon as he had time, he came with jewelry and gave it to the main character. But he still couldn't do it. And now, sitting on the floor, the young lady thinks who gives such things to children and sighs as if she doesn't want to talk to him anymore. And the guy then asks, a little surprised, if the babies sigh too. The main character thinks that it seems she has started to grow more slowly, and does not understand if it could be because of him. And this is a stupid excuse, but she noticed that she cannot use magic. The boy, looking at the young lady, thinks that she would look cute if she took this stone, after which a wonderful idea, in his opinion, appears in his head. And the little girl at this time is still trying to learn to walk and is worried because she still can't do it. And the people here are not rushing her because they don't want to stress the main character and care about her. The little girl understands that this is her 100th time in the body of a child and thinks whether she can hesitate, because at any moment something bad can happen, like that time with the robber. However, suddenly Michael puts a red ruby in the young lady's hood, which surprises her a little, because she suddenly feels heaviness in her head and loses her balance. And at that very moment, he begins to fall to the floor, not understanding what happened. The maid screams her mistress's name in shock and immediately tries to get closer to her and grab the baby for her. The blonde man is no less surprised and immediately runs up to her. But at that moment, the girl already falls to the ground. And the guy only manages to save her head from the blow, after which his stone rolls a little further. The maid at that moment runs up to the young lady and asks if the mistress is okay. The main character wonders if she really lost her balance because everything happened in a rather strange way, and her head suddenly felt heavy. The blonde then turns to the young lady and apologizes, after which he claims that he wanted to give her the pebble, but did not know that she would fall. The main character then looks at the guy in shock and sees that very stone not far from you. The girl understands that at the moment when she stood up, her head suddenly became heavy, and it was Mikhail who put Ruby in her hood. The little girl then clenches her fists and thinks how impudent this is, and also wonders if the guy wanted to shame her, after which the girl screams that she hates the guy, but since she can't talk, it only sounds like that. The maid was in shock then, and the blonde man no less. He asks the young lady if she hates him, and she just turns away and tells him to go away, but she still can't say it properly. The guy then asks why the little girl is driving him away, because of course he made a mistake because he put in a ruby that was too big, but he just thought that it would suit the girl. The maids then talk among themselves, and one of them claims that it is amazing how the guy understood what the little girl wanted to say, and the other maid says that it is true. The little girl, looking at the blonde, thinks that this is even more annoying because her family can't understand. But for this boy, it's so easy, and sister and brother will be upset when they find out. But this guy also saved her, and although he showed nobility, she doesn't want to upset the family anymore, so the girl completely turns away from him. The guy then asks if she wants to learn to walk, because if so, he will help us. The baby tries to say that she does not want to. And the blonde then says that she speaks well for a baby and asks how she does it. The little girl thinks that she is annoyed by the fact that he thinks she is too small. And the guy says that he really can help because it hasn't even been 6 months since he started walking. The baby is then in shock and wonders if he really learned to walk at 6 months, since she hasn't even really learned to stand at 7 months. The guy claims that he was very good at it when he was a child, and asks if the little girl really doesn't want to learn. The girl thinks it's unbelievable, but the offer is very tempting, and she is growing up in normal conditions for the first time, so she doesn't know how to be a child and wants to stop crawling. But she still doesn't want to get help from that nasty boy again. The guy just extends his hand and says he will teach her. He waits for the little girl to answer him with a smile on his face, and she wonders why he is smiling. And the girl also doesn't understand why he now reminds her so much of her brother. After which, she extends her hand and thinks that she accepts help not because the guy looks like her brother, but because she wants to grow up faster. The maid, seeing how the little girl extends her hand to Mikhail, is a little surprised. And the main character, looking at the blonde and his smile, thinks that she is seeing such an expression on his face for the first time. The girl stares at the guy for a bit, but then realizes that she needs to remain vigilant. And he pats Togo on the hands, wanting him to learn to walk quickly. The boy says that he understands and will help her get up and move around too, after which he lifts the baby up. To the surprise of the main character, she was able to stand up. The little girl wonders if he made her stand up so easily. And the blonde then claims that he did say that he would help her, and the little girl understands that he was right, but does not understand how he did it. And the guy at this time says that since she got up, she can walk. The little girl is a little surprised by this and thinks that it is impossible to do so right away. But when she takes the first step, she is even more surprised and realizes that she is really walking now. The girl thinks that she has finally learned to walk and smiles, and the maids then say in shock that they saw their mistress's first steps with their own eyes. At this moment, someone drops his book on the floor, and it turns out to be the young lady's brother. He, seeing his sister taking her first steps with his friend, is completely confused. The main character wonders if the classes are already over, and the blonde then turns to his friend and tells him to look, because the Duchess is holding on to him and walking well. Anastasia understands that her brother is in shock and is trying to break free from Mikhail's arms, but he says that the little girl better not do that, otherwise she might fall again, which makes the young lady's brother very surprised and, clenching his fists, asks what that means. Damien immediately picks up his sister and asks Anastasia if she fell. The maid claims that it wasn't bad and she didn't even cry, but the young man with pink hair says that she did fall. The blonde then tells Damien that it's all because of him, and he wanted to give her the gift, but the pink-haired boy breaks through to his friend and asks if his sister fell because of him. The blonde then says that she didn't really fall because he saved the girl's head, but the young lady's brother then asks if she could have hit her head. The main character understands that this is not for the best. And Damien then tells Mikhail Leventis that from today on, he forbids him from seeing Anastasia. The blonde then says that he didn't want to, and the girl really did. But the young lady's brother does not let him finish, and only screams at him to leave, because if it were not for him, the little girl would not be in danger. Why doesn't the guy know what to say, and the main character's brother just turns away? The little girl realizes that these two have had a serious fight, and the blonde then just looks sadly and says that it is true and good that Damien has a sister. The guy with pink hair then turns around in surprise because he didn't want to offend his friend at all, and the main character thinks how everything turned out like this, and it would have been better if they both had been ordinary children. But unlike their peers, these two look more like immature adults. And in such a situation, an adult child does not know what is best to do, and if everything is left as is, the situation will get worse and she does not want this. But she can't do anything. The main character understands that there is no choice left, except to solve everything in this way. The girl understands that Damien's situation is that after school he likes to read books with his younger sisters, and from his soothing voice everyone falls into a daytime sleep, and the rumbling of Lorencia's stomach will be like an alarm clock for their snack, and this is the most favorite moment in the guy's life. But after Michael saved his sister, he lost that moment. And Mikhail's situation is that he is the only member of his family. He is a constantly busy grandfather, and he saw a small child for the first time, so he was very surprised, and also didn't know how to handle it. Before that, he spent almost all his time with balls, and there were no evil intentions on his part. After all, he simply didn't know anything. Anastasia's situation is that in the end, it was all because of her. That day, the guy got on her nerves so much that she said one word. The girl said something similar to go away, Mikhail. But the boy understood everything and asked if the little girl was telling him to go. But then he asked in surprise if she had just said his name. And the main character understood that this was the beginning of the trouble, because the fact that the first name she said was his, and not someone from the family, upset everyone. So they asked her to say their names all day. And even the first steps were with Mikhail, so the girl thinks how upset her brother was and understands that all the blame lies with her. And now I will have to use that method because there is no other way out. After which, the baby takes a breath and screams with all her might. The maid immediately runs up to the lady, and the two guys are very worried about the baby. The girl then tries to say something through her tears, but her brother doesn't understand anything. So he turns to Mikhail. The blonde then claims that the girl is very scared and doesn't like it. And the young lady's brother is shocked by such words, after which he immediately turns to Anastasia and says that it is her brother's fault. The blonde claims that he was also wrong. And the main character thinks that they should apologize not to her, but to each other, after which she grabs her brother by the clothes and points at the blonde. The young lady's brother then approaches him, and Michael apologizes to Damien for putting his precious sister in danger. The boy with pink hair then also apologizes and says that he shouldn't have said that, and that he saw that they were having fun together. That's why he said that. The maid, looking at this, feels relieved, and the blonde then claims that he does not know how to communicate with children. So he asks, a little embarrassed, if Damien can teach him. The pink-haired boy was a little flustered by what was said earlier and doesn't even know what to say. The blonde boy says that he really doesn't know, so he asks to teach him. But he respected his sister and believed the guy said not to touch her. So he did not do it without permission. The little girl understands that this is why he did not catch her that time. And the blonde now turns to his friend and says that he doesn't know what could be dangerous for the baby, and therefore asks Damien to help. The boy with pink hair is a little surprised by such a request, but then smiles and says that, of course, he will help because the guy is his friend. After which they shake hands, and the blonde asks if they have made peace. And when his friend answers there, Mikhail asks if he can continue to come there. The boy with pink hair says, of course, after which Mikhail smiles sincerely. The main character, looking at all this, thinks that they are so noble, like from a picture. But she hasn't cried for so long that she is very tired and her eyelids are heavy. So the baby thinks that nothing will happen if she sleeps a little. But at the same moment when the girl falls asleep, she realizes that she has found herself in some strange place. The baby understands that she fell asleep in her brother's arms, but now she is in a different place and this must be a dream. The main character thinks that she needs to wake up, but suddenly she hears someone asking for salvation. The little girl immediately turns towards this voice and sees some kind of cocoon behind her, all wrapped in chains. The girl does not understand what it is, but her subconscious does not listen, and the body itself begins to move. Walking towards the strange thing, the little girl thinks, what is this huge something? And it cannot be alive. And when she is already a meter away from him, she thinks, what is it? But how he begins to speak and claims that he is the only one who understands her. The main character mentally asks her hands to stop and does not understand how something can understand her menu. Has it really been reborn 200 times? When the baby touches this something, the white fabric begins to unwind. And the little girl even covers her eyes with her hands, but when she finally decides to look, then he sees in front of him another child. And he only tells Anastasia not to forget, that he is the only one, after which he flies up to the baby. But when he already stretches out his hands, he suddenly stops, after which he turns around and says that there is interference again. And the main character hears fragments of someone's words. But suddenly she wakes up and realizes that these are her parents. In front of her, she also sees Mikhail with a blue ball. The main character, seeing how worried her relatives are, wonders why they are all there. The young lady's mother, with tears in her eyes, tells the little girl that the fever has not gone down for a week and asks if she can imagine how worried they are. And then the little girl wonders if she was really unconscious for a week. At this time, the young lady's sister tells Asya that she will be sick instead of her. And then the brother says Lawrence and that then he will be sick instead of her. The father then hugs his children and says that he would rather take the illness for all of them. Mikhail just silently watches all this and then looks away. Well, suddenly he feels as if she puts her hand on his head. It turns out to be the heroine's father, and he thanks Mikhail, claiming that it's all thanks to him. The boy then says that it's the only thing he could do. But the Duke only ruffles his hair and insists that there is no need to be modest. After all, this week was hell for them, and the guy brought with him a family treasure. The Duke claims that it turns out that someone cursed Anastasia because they were so frightened by the doctor's words. But thanks to this treasure, Anastasia woke up. The young lady's mother also thanks Mikhail, and the main character, looking at the guy, thinks that he has come such a long way and she is in his debt again since that time when he saved her from the kidnapper. But then the main character thinks about what kind of curses they were talking about, because she has lived countless lives and has developed immunity to such treachery. But something pulled her into that dream, and this creature can easily cross out all her accumulated strength. So the little girl understands that she knew that the 100th life would not be calm. It was so good there that the girl briefly forgot about her fate and her purpose to save someone or something. And in order to use her power correctly, she needs to grow up quickly and also pay off her debts. The young lady's mother turns to Anastasia and asks her to be healthy. The main character understands that first and foremost, she must play the role of the youngest. For the first time in many years, she slept peacefully for a month, and the situation grew. Even a small use of force led to an increase in temperature. Fortunately, the girl never met any more invited guests in her dreams, and time still goes on, and now the young lady is already 9 months old. The father spreads his arms for a hug and tells the little girl to come to him. The girl, holding onto a chair, looks at her father and then decides that she can do it, after which she takes one step at a time and starts walking. But suddenly her leg gets a little tangled and the baby starts to fall. But her father immediately grabbed her before she could fall. With a sincere smile on his face, he asks the youngest if she was able to walk on her own. He cries out whether the servants saw that their youngest went by herself. The main character understands that she only walked a little bit, and without her father, she would have fallen. But the knights then, full of admiration, exclaim that it was grand and so touching, and also impressive. So they are very glad that they were able to see this moment. The main character wonders why she should admire 3 awkward steps so much. But one way or another, this is really big progress. The baby's body is growing, and it is easier to use magic and collect information. The little girl learned that a festival was planned for April, as well as the schedule of Mikhail's visit. The girl also learned about the title and history of this family. She is worried that she is not growing up as fast, but she is reassured by the opportunity to gather information. At this time, the father says that their baby has managed to walk on her own, after which he turns to the knights and asks if they are training hard. The main character then wonders, a little puzzled, what relation does childhood achievements have to the training of knights? And after all, her father behaves like a real boss. The servants then cry out that they cannot compare with the Duchess, but they work hard and will do everything possible to keep up with the successes of their mistress. But the Duke then says that he heard that the last time Mikhail came, Anastasia fell, and from such words, the knights begin to get nervous. The young lady's father then says that spring has come and it is time to test the knights' skills and services. Then they ask if the Duke means the same thing. And the man says that at the April festival, they will hold a martial arts competition, so everyone needs to be ready. The main character is then shocked and wonders if her father made her an excuse to test the knight's skills. And the man with pink hair just lifts his daughter into the air and claims that, naturally, the main heroines of the festival are his daughters. The main character thinks what natural means, and at this time, Anastasia's older sister runs into the room. She calls the baby by name and immediately runs up to her and hugs her. The little girl claims that Asya and Lara will be the main characters of the festival. A little while later, the maid is already discussing what to wear for the little girl, and one of them says that the younger mistress still has short hair, so wouldn't it be better to put something on her head? Another maid says that a headband with a ribbon would go perfectly with the color of the dress, and the young lady's mother says that since it is spring now, shouldn't she use yellow fabric? The maid then turns to their mistress and asks what dress she first wore as a child, and the woman replies that her first dress seemed to be white with yellow trim. And then the maid claps her hands and says that then the little lady would also suit the yellow dress perfectly. And they are so similar. They are also beautiful and graceful from birth. They have the same hair color and ruby eyes. The young lady's mother only says that when he first saw Anastasia, her husband was so happy that she looked like her, and always said that he wanted a child like her. Then the woman takes a beautiful yellow fabric into her hands and claims that a yellow dress will then be worn for the competition. Running her hand over the fabric, the young lady's mother claims that at the little girl's age, such a bright color will look very cute. And one of the maids claims that the girl will look like a cute chicken, to which the young lady's mother asks if the maid thinks the baby will be like a forsythia flower. Then the woman sitting in front of them, who apparently is taking the order, says that the lady should not worry, because they can combine the two ideas into one. The woman then asks if this is true, because if so, then that's great. After which she points to the remaining fabric and says that their youngest has few dresses, so they ask if they could make them from all the materials. The woman who sews the outfits is shocked by such an order, and the young lady's mother only tells her to do everything very beautifully, after which he asks if she can. After the father's sudden announcement of the competition, the preparations for the festival became more lively. One of the knights with shaking legs claimed that he would definitely win, and another knight claimed that he made 3,000 sword strikes every day. The main character realizes that the knights voluntarily train all night long in all sorts of strange ways. At this time, the maids are embroidering scarves and thinking about which knight to give them to. The main character understands that many maids blush at the thought of declaring their love, and it is spring, so it is a good time for everyone. Sometime later, it was mid-April and the day of the martial arts competition. Now the main character is being fed by one of the maids, and she asks her to say A. And the main character does so. But suddenly the maid moves her hand a little, and the porridge almost falls on the baby. Another maid immediately, with a light wave of her hand, uses a napkin to catch the drop in flight. After which she screams at the other maid, asking how many times she told her that on such an important day, she needed to be even more careful. Another maid apologizes, and the brunette asks what she would do if a stain appeared on her dress, because the dress was specially made for the mistress for this day, so let her pull herself together. The main character, looking at her dress, understands that it is really good. The young lady's mother said that it is magnificent, and it is immediately obvious that the baby is her daughter. And the maid said that, of course, when she first saw the lady, she thought that this design would suit her. And the yellow color together with the forsythia flower does not allow you to take your eyes off her. The young lady's mother then said that it was good and she would double all the expenses for the dress, which made the woman who sewed the dress with puppy eyes thank her. Now the maid is still screaming that if the dress gets ruined, they will fly out of here. And the main character thinks that nothing happened. But why is everything so unusual today? After which she turns to the maid who fed her and tries to say something. The girl then asks with tears in her eyes if her mistress is comforting her, after which she immediately runs up to the girl and says that she knew that their mistress had a very kind soul. The girl also claimed that she was so jealous of the one who would be with her today and asked who would be her partner at the festival. The black-haired maid claimed that he would come soon, so the girl would clean up there as soon as possible after eating. And the main character at that time realized that all this fuss was about the partner. The girl understands that she is unlucky, so in two options she always wins. Or, at this time, Mikhail enters the room and greets the little girl, and the main character thinks that it seems they haven't seen each other for a month, after which he remains silent, approaches her closer and says that, unfortunately, the little lady, today, he is her partner. He also asked the baby if she didn't like being held in his arms before, but this time he trained a lot because of that. He asks the girl if she will allow him to accompany her today. The girl is a little surprised by this, and a little while later they are already at the festival. The main character's mother asks for the attention of all participants, after which she claims that the winner of this tournament will receive not only a cash prize, but also a respectable gift, namely that Lorencia Endevlan and Anastasia Endevlan will personally present them with flowers. The main character, in Mikhail's arms with a small bouquet, thinks that he was shouting so much that he was practicing, but his skills in holding a child are terrible, and she is very uncomfortable. At this time, the knights run up to the main character and shout that they will definitely receive flowers from the Duchess. Another knight claims that he will win. And the third one at this time clears his throat and says that the lady should not worry, because he will receive these flowers and give them to Mr. Damien. The young lady's mother turns to the little ones and tells them to say one word each to support their knights. The little girl immediately screams that Lara is rooting for them, so let them try. And Damien claims that he believes that they will win, so let them not let him down. The Duchess then turns to her daughter and says that she is next, wondering about the main character, whether she will also say something and does not understand what they want from a 10-month-old child, because all she can do is coo ugly. But Mikhail then turns to the little girl and tells her not to worry because he will translate her words and the main character understands that this is not the problem. After which she looks at all the puppy eyes of the knights and understands that nothing can be done. Then she stretches out her hand and says something. Mikhail immediately asks the rotary if they heard the words of the lady because she said that they should win. The knights immediately shout that they will give it their all. The main character sighs and thinks that this is good. But suddenly someone else does not address, and it turns out to be the blonde who is holding her. Mikhail asks if the lady will also say a word to him because he will also be competing. The main character then looks at the guy in shock and wonders if he is going to compete with these huge and scary knights. The main character understands that because of the kidnapping, she knows that the guy's abilities are better than the newbies, but the difference in strength and endurance cannot be ignored, and she also thinks about what will happen if he gets hurt, because the boy is still a 6-year-old child. The blonde is still talking to the little girl and asking if she would wish him victory, because if she supports him, he will definitely win. But the main character does not understand what is in people's heads, after which she grabs the guy by the clothes and says something to him. The boy then asks if the little girl told him not to get hurt, and asks if she wants him to win. Well, the little girl just agrees, and then the blonde puts her on the ground and laughs, after which he himself gets down on one knee and claims that he needs to work harder to show her his best side. Mikhail also says that he will return safe and sound, but for this let the little girl say that he was cool if he wins. The main character looks at him a little surprised and then just turns her head away, and the boy asks if she is pretending not to understand again. The main character understands that he apparently remembered the moment when she said that her brother was cool, and when the blonde pointed to himself and asked if he was cool, the little girl said no. At that very moment, someone announces the start of the first competition, and the little girl understands that everything will start soon, but she does not understand where Dad is, because he is the organizer. However, suddenly the girl hears her father's voice and does not understand why he is leaving the arena. And when she looks at the arena, she sees a man with pink hair waving and saying that he will receive flowers from his daughters. The main character then realizes in shock that he is like an adult participating in a children's fight. The man only continues to wave his hand and asks if his son and daughter are looking at him. And the mother of the main character, seeing this, says that their dad is exaggerating a little. The brother of the young lady, holding her in his arms, suggests not to stand by the railing because it is dangerous. Anastasia, at this time, thinks that her father does not look cool in front of his family and looks more like an immature boy. A little while later, the main character's family is already sitting on special chairs. The main character's father is still playing the fool in the arena, and the girl thinks that if you don't take into account her father's foolishness, the competition should be interesting. The baby also thinks that the expected new one is more comfortable to clean up in her arms, and judging by the reaction of the knights to her father, his attitude towards them, they are confident in his excellent abilities, but do not know their scale. After a little while, the referee is already waving the flag and shouting that the battle has begun. The young lady's father offers to fight with honor, and the knight agrees. But when the father gets into a fighting stance, his face immediately changes, and the main character thinks that he instantly became a different person. But even sitting there, she feels the tension. The father's knight is afraid of such a heavy aura, but before he can do anything, the young lady's father is already approaching him. He tells the knight to concentrate, and the servant agrees with the master. After which, the man with pink hair tells his opponent to keep his balance and put strength into his legs. The main character then wonders if this is a training or a competition, but no matter how much difference there is in skills, the knight cannot even touch his father. A short time later, the competition is declared over, and when the knight's sword already hits the floor, he says that he has lost. The young lady's father immediately turns to his family and asks his son and daughters if their dad was cool. The main character thinks that if he hadn't said something like that, he would have been. In the next duel, Michael had to fight a 10-year-old knight, and perhaps due to the difference in size, he quickly closed in and delivered a powerful blow at the very beginning of the fight. Mikhail took advantage of the moment to knock the sword out and win the first round. The little girl realizes that he is taking advantage of his height, and this is an amazing fighting strategy. But fortunately, or unfortunately, the second round was with her father. The man with pink hair told the boy to show him all his abilities. The main character, watching this fight, understood that it was expected that the father was calm, and the young lady's brother asked if it was true that their father was magnificent. The little girl only agreed and then continued to look at the fight. She understood that this guy would not be able to defeat Dad, but he did not lose momentum, attacking his father with all his might. At this age, he is very good at handling the ball and has the will to win, so most likely in 10 years. He will reach the same level as her father, and in 20 years he will become the best knight in the world. The little girl understands that she will never know this, because she will not be there by that time. They feel sorry that she will not live more than 20 years, and that is why she stopped taking students. In some ways, people wanted to become stronger, and she taught them to ignore age and status. But she never saw them move to a new level because she was no longer in that world. Or her disciples betrayed her or did not know mercy. 8 out of 10 were traitors. One of the disciples of the wound fell into eternal sleep, and another achieved success late. The little girl also had her ups and downs, and the remaining habits are a terrible thing. Now the girl evaluates the skills of people who fight, and notices that one of them has too much tension in his left shoulder. The balance is stable, but he sometimes uses useless force. But the control of strengths and weaknesses is impressive. Given the boy's ball control, he will have a wealth of military experience. The girl understands that he has a great innate sense of combat, but his body is not yet able to withstand it, so it is better to use strong magic and combine it with the sword. The little girl also understands that she is constantly evaluating their qualities, and perhaps she still wants to leave something behind. The boy then turns to his sister and asks if she likes Mikhail very much, and also claims that if he participated, he would be cool too. The main character, hearing this, is a little surprised and thinks that her brother misunderstood everything, because how can she like this small, nasty boy? After which she says that no, and her brother is cool. And he asks if he is cooler than Mikhail, and the little girl agrees. But then she doesn't understand why her brother asks this so often, and the boy just smiles at her and says that, then it's good. He also claims that Mikhail will be upset if he hears us, and the main character thinks that she has this feeling again. Living with a loving family in this life, she thought she had enough. But then she met a strange child in her dream. The feelings she had been holding tightly inside began to come out, and a strong desire to stay with them longer arose. Well, the girl thinks that first she needs to find out who this suspicious child is. At this time, the sword of one of the participants falls on the field, and the boy with blonde hair tells the Duke that he has lost. Mikhail managed to land 2 punches on his father and knocked him out in the second round. The man now claims that it has become much better compared to the last time, and the boy thanks him. And the main character now understands that, as everyone expected, the winner of the competition was her father. The main character is now approaching her father with her sister and brother, and he greets them happily. The little girl with pink hair comes up to her dad and says that he is very cool and Lara's dad is the best. The man then asks his daughter if it is true, and at this time the main character comes up to him and addresses her father, after which she hands him a bouquet. Father smiles after this and then hugs them. He claims that what happiness because his children are so cute and wonderful, and he showed them how cool he is. The main character's brother then says that he is no longer a child, but a young lady. He only sighs. At this time, the blonde is nearby and asks how much longer the younger Duchess will pretend that she doesn't understand anything. After this competition with many obstacles, the father successfully completed it, having received 3 blows to the side from the mother. The man claimed that he would continue to receive admiration from their children, and his wife told him not to forget his reputation. Well, the main character then heard someone's voice who claimed that he missed his mistress. A little while later, 2 men are sitting at a table with meat and saying that their duke is the best because he gave them free meat and drink. And another man says that this year the man was very cheerful because the younger Duchess also participated. A man in his 30s claims that after the festival, the harvest season will begin, which is intense work during the harvest season, and today is the last quiet day, so you need to eat your fill and start working. His interlocutor says yes, and then asks, who does the youngest Duchess look more like, her father or her mother? The silver-haired man asks if the boy is going to think about it together with Togo, and he claims he doesn't know, after which he asks if all children don't usually look like the Duke. Well, the guy claims that it's impossible to say for sure, because maybe this time everything will be different. However, suddenly, someone quickly runs into the bar and shouts that the ducal family is passing by, so let those who are interested come out. The 2 interlocutors exchange glances, after which they immediately run out, and even the cafe workers do the same. The silver-haired man tries to stop his friend, who only breaks through the crowd and asks if he was right because this time everything is different. The main character understands that after the martial arts competition, the father provided the peasants with booze and meat, and he even went to the apparatus in a carriage without a roof. Now the man with pink hair claims that they could not miss a festival in which the main characters are his daughters. The main character thinks that this is a good excuse, but he is simply pleased with his victory. Lara is happy at this time and says that she has become the main character, and the young lady with her brother at this time with the man's situation. The common people say that they will work hard this year and there is no more caring master. And since the Duke is a wonderful man, his daughters are also beautiful. The main character, looking at all this, thinks that this is an amazing sight, and she has never seen aristocrats communicate so freely with ordinary people. The festival was held to reduce the fatigue of the common people, and under some pretext, they distributed food. Everyone had smiles on their faces, so the girl wonders how long it has been since she met such a good leader. She doesn't think she saw anything like it when she was leading others. But suddenly she notices some flowers, and when she turns around, she sees that it is one of the knights. He claims that the girl wanted to give this bouquet to the little girl. Anastasia examined the knight and thinks that the participants in the competition were told to rest, so she does not understand why he is there. The main character's mother then says that these are very beautiful flowers and thanks for them. The main character also tries to thank. The redhead claims that this is their duty to them. Mom. The young lady then says that today he can rest, but he says, Madam, that it is not necessary because a long rest is harmful to the body. The little girl thinks that if you think about it like that, then he is right because in her past life, being a knight, she does not remember that you ever rested. And she doesn't think that it's enough to just be a loyal protector, because if you show your abilities, there will be an aristocrat or a king who will want to keep them to himself. Among them were those who cried, telling her not to fall into eternal sleep, even though it was very selfish. But one of these people claimed that if the girl dies, who will protect her? The main character was then told that if she didn't die, then they would die, and how could that be? And the woman said that she was very scared, and Anastasia then just laughed and told her not to worry, because even without her, the woman would be fine. The princess was very young and grumpy, but also very kind. Before the main character was immersed in eternal sleep, she put a bunch of protective spells on her, so now the girl is wondering if she was able to grow up safely. The little girl thinks that this is so strange because she has rarely thought about the past until now, but she still doesn't understand why, on the threshold of plunging into eternal sleep, she saw worried faces of people before her eyes. However, now the girl understands that it is not so important, because from now on it is better not to have memories to worry about. The little girl also thinks that she would like to be able to use her power and summon an assistant sooner. When the girl is already in the estate, someone turns to the little girl and asks why she has such a serious face. It turns out that this is the same blonde guy, and he claims that he won the first round today, after which he asks if that's not cool. He also asks what he should do to make the baby call him cool, like his brother, because he is already practicing holding her correctly. Anastasia then thinks if he is sure that he has practiced this skill, but suddenly her bottle of milk falls out of her hands. And the guy at that very moment grabs her and then claims that the girl is still small so he can hold it. The boy also says that one way or another he wants to hear from her that he is cool, after which he asks if she will say it if he wins the Duke. The girl thinks that he would be cool if he did not say it, and he has no bones in his tongue. After this, the festival ended successfully, and time continued to pass, and the end of May arrived. Someone turns to the lady and says that she has already filled it out, so she should rest. But the main character's mother tells him to go and not worry. Believe me. She will fill out the diary and lie down. The woman also claims that they are so busy this month and are growing fast, so it would be a shame not to record it. The man then calmly states that he will bring her some calming tea so that the woman can fall asleep quickly. And the young lady's mother thanks the butler and then continues to write down the important event in her diary. She records that on May 5th, Lorencia was happy to receive a pink cake for her birthday, exactly the same color as her hair, and she looked very cute. On the 14th of May, Anastasia got her first tooth, and it was very small. The servants still bring her toys and look at her with hopeful eyes, but it turns out that some anxiety has appeared on her face. On May 31st, that is, today the baby finally climbed into the chair. It's a pity that the woman didn't see it in person, but in honor of this, they had a festive dinner. The young lady's mother thinks that Anastasia is already 11 months old and does not understand how the girl grows so quickly. But it would be great if it happened more slowly. The main character at this time lies calmly in her bed, but a second later she immediately opens her eyes and then looks at the maid. When she looks a little closer, she realizes that, as she thought, the maid is sleeping. Even after the first flip, the little girl didn't expect them to throw her a party again, and they surprise her more and more. But thanks to this table, it's easier than she thought. Now the maid, tired from preparing for the banquet, is sleeping peacefully in a chair. And the main character at this time decides not to remain idle and then calls upon the spirit. A small ball seems to be formed from magic, after which wings, paws, and a tail are formed from it. The creature runs up to the lady and says that it missed her very much. The main character, looking at the creature, says that they haven't seen their talkative information collector named Choco for a long time. Choco is already making a scene in the room and asking why the lady didn't call him and whether she didn't want to see him, and that's why she didn't call him for 20 years. But he really missed the lady and waited every day looking at the sky. The main character realizes that she has the ability to summon things that she used in past lives. She met Choco in her 30th life when she was a devil. Choco asked why the lady decided to give him this name, and the woman claimed that it was because he looked like chocolate. The creature then said that he wanted to eat chocolate too, but the main character said that he couldn't. The girl understood that in 99 life she was tired of everything and she spent 20 years doing nothing, so she did not need to collect information. Now the dog climbs onto the main character's head and asks why the lady doesn't pet Choco, because he would be very happy. And the girl says that while he is there, this will not happen. The little girl also realizes that despite her circumstances, it seems like this chatterbox was very lonely, and he is the only being who can talk to her about her lives. But she made him sad. After which, the main character strokes the dog on the head and he turns over onto his tummy, wanting to look at her some more. The main character then turns to the dog and says that a creature is sneaking into her dreams. He immediately gets to his feet and asks why and if this is the underworld. The main character then replies that no, and this is an ordinary place. And the dog asks who dares to intrude into the devil's sleep, because it is not allowed. Because even Choco did not dare to eat chocolate. But be that as it may, he must find this impudent creature. The dog places his hand on his chest as if promising that he will do it. And the main character then says that, yes, let him find out more about this world. But the dog then asks why and claims that the lady did not want to limit herself in anything and promised him that she would live in comfort. 100 years ago, she said that she would not be in pain anymore. But she did not call him for 20 years and endured everything. So he does not understand why. The main character claims that she was not against it, and the dog claims that he does not like it because every time the lady suffers and saves everyone, and he hates it. The main character then thinks that her puppy suffered instead of her, and that she really is okay. After all, the longer she lives, the more often she can be betrayed, and the girl can suffer a little in order to protect her life. But this family is selflessly kind to her, so the baby thinks what is the price of that little everyday life that she enjoyed for 11 months, and she wants to repay her relatives before the destruction of the world. The little girl hugs her puppy and says that in this life she really wants this, but Choco says that she always says that. And the girl then says that he can be there and protect her, and she will continue to call on him. The puppy then looks at his mistress and asks if this is true, and the girl replies that it is because he himself wants it. The puppy then begins to flap his wings and says that then it is good, and he will obey the good lady and will also try, after which the main character watches him fly away. A little while later, the girl already understood that according to Choco's information, there is one empire and 2 kingdoms in this world. In addition to the Holy Kingdom, where the Pope is the main one, there are other small and large countries. And this is a familiar form of the world in which people use their slit power and magic. But her abilities are a little different. In particular, her family lives in the kingdom of Farshan, and there recognizes both sacred and magical power. Perhaps that is why there is a magic tower next to the duchy. The empire is aiming for continental supremacy, so the presence of a magic tower must be very important. But they probably have a lot of secrets. When the main character eats porridge, who thinks that she is somehow uneasy? And the puppy at this time apologizes to the lady a little worriedly and claims that he wanted to cope better. The girl thinks that, besides Heir, that the puppy tried so hard but could not find any more information, and she wants to explore the empire right now. But her power is limited to the kingdom, so there's nothing she can do. And it's not like she'll be attacked by criminals today, while Choco is helping her well. And as Mom said, there's no need to rush too much. Lately, the little one has been trying so hard to grow up quickly, and everyone says she's active. Except Mom. The woman simply asks why their youngest is in such a hurry, since her mother simply wants her to grow up healthy, and she always remained her mother's girl. And now the girl understands that thanks to her mother, she has no need to worry. After all, these words pierced her to the depths of her soul, and everything was fine for the last 2 months, so she can think that it will be the same in the future. The puppy, looking at his mistress, understands that for the first time he sees her so peaceful, and his mistress is the best, because he likes her more and more, and also he brings her a lot of benefit, right? The dog even spins around the maid's head, which makes the main character smile. The maid, seeing her mistress's smile, is very surprised, and then with a smile on her face says that Anastasia laughed at her feeding skills. The protagonist realizes that she smirked because of Choco's cuteness, while the maid still admires herself and says that it is thanks to her hard training after the festival. The dog turns to the young lady and asks what is wrong with that maid, and the girl tells him not to take the head and that it is a misunderstanding that does not require an explanation. The girl understands that only she can see the puppy, so she told him to fly and check everything, but even Molly can't see him. The little girl thinks that it's good that Choco may be near her, but it's bad that she suffers from his chatter. That's how it should be. However, now the boy with blonde hair asks the little girl if she has a puppy. The main character is then shocked and wonders why the guy sees a puppy, after which she mentally orders Choco to pretend to be a toy. The main character understands that even magicians cannot see her puppy, but for some reason the guy can. The boy then reaches out his hand to the puppy and asks if this might be a toy. The main character understands that now he will look like a strange guy who strokes the air and at the same time tries to say that he will get dirty. The guy asks if he will get dirty, and the girl answers that yes, after which the blonde goes after the baby and asks if she likes frequency. Because if so, then it's very cute. But she said that she only likes toys from Damien. He also claims that he also gave toys and then asks the little girls if they like them. After all, if so, then that toy is also not to her taste. After the Hunger Games do not answer that yes, then the puppy comes into complete shock. Well, the boy then asks the main character what about the yellow dress, and the girl thinks why he started talking about it. The blonde also asks about rubies and claims that he likes rubies because they look like the baby's eyes. After this, silence hangs between them, and the main character decides that if she doesn't answer, the guy won't bother her anymore. Well, I guess, my intuition tells me. However, the boy most likely does not decide to give up and goes after the little girl. He asks what about fireworks because he likes them, and also Toy's father's films because the maid said that the baby likes yellow. The main character understands that she is silent, but the guy continues to talk anyway. and she already doubts the information that the puppy brought her. In those memories, the guy only answered questions coldly and briefly, but now he is completely different. The young man asks what the little girl thinks about the gem mines, and the little girl understands that Duke Michael is known for his silence. She is also convinced of some things because the boy really did walk on his own at 6 months. But for a year, he did not even coo, so the Duke and his wife were very worried, and all the famous doctors told them not to worry. Thanks to this, the little girl understood that her family was not at all strange, and fortunately for the Duke's parents, after some time, he said his first words. His first words were an appeal to his mom and dad in which he said that he could speak. There were even rumors that the Archduke's family almost had a heart attack from such a long sentence. After that, he was nicknamed the child who doesn't say anything unnecessary unless necessary. And 2 years ago, after the death of his parents, he began to speak even less and they began sending him to the little girl's estate, under the pretext of lessons for the heir. But among loving adults and peers, he was able to feel like a child. However, it is a little strange that Mikhail does not get along with his sister. Lorencia is very friendly and easy to get close to, but Mikhail comes there and doesn't really talk to her like they're strangers. And even Choco couldn't find out about it because there's too little information about him. But anyway, if the guy doesn't talk much, then why is he too talkative with her? Balakan turns to the little girl again and then asserts that today he really wants to hear that he is cool and to see her smile, so he asks if the baby will help him a little. The main character understands that she would have refused if the guy had specifically asked for a gift, but the boy kept saying that her birthday was coming soon, and he couldn't think of what to give her. The main character then understands that almost a whole year has passed since she was born in this strange house. And it's even a pity that time has flown by so quickly, because her curse is for me to live for 20 years. At this time, the maid turns to the Duke and then claims that it is time to have a snack. So let them go quickly. The maid also asks the Duke if Madame Lorencia is not with them and if she has not arrived. When the maid leaves, she thinks it's strange because she asked Lorencia to call them. The lady with pink hair is standing behind one of the corners at this time. The maid then turned to the little girl and claimed that the younger Duchess was playing in the garden, after which she asked if the little girl would call them to eat, and the girl answered that yes, and she would do everything. Well, when she came to these two, she saw how the blonde was smiling sincerely. The girl immediately remembered how he was known as an indifferent person walking down the corridor. The lady with pink hair then greeted him and claimed to be Lara. Well, the guy only briefly answered that he was Mikhail Leventis and did not even look in her direction. He also claimed that he did not need anything and was going to class. The girl tried to make friends with him a couple more times, but he only rejected her. When people's emotions and experiences pile up, then he will tell them that during the day there are more and more of them. On a clear morning on the 3rd of July, the little girl woke up as always. A year ago in the summer, she began her 100th life, and now she is a little anxious. And the little girl is even surprised that she can feel this. She also understands that today is her birthday. The girl doesn't even remember how much time has passed since she celebrated it. And no one even thought of congratulating her. Every year, her birthday was a symbol of the allotted time, and the harder life was, the more it was felt. But this time, everything is different, and it even amazes her. The little girl feels a small and pleasant joy, and not a burning grief, as if long-forgotten feelings were revived. And it was enough for her for the family to say some words of congratulations. That's what she thought, however. Mom gave the little girl a whole wardrobe of different dresses and asked which one she would choose today. The woman leaned over to her daughter and said that today was a very important ceremony. The little girl then wondered if they were going to do something like Duljabi, which is a fortune-telling about a future profession. If she chooses threads, it means she won't live even 20 years, or that she will live 200,000 years, but she doesn't like anyone else. The young lady's mother claims she means the dress she chooses for her first birthday will reveal her future partner, and he can be both a husband and a colleague and a friend. The main character understands that her mother chose a pink dress and a ribbon with an emerald in her childhood, and looking at this whole outfit, the little girl thinks, is this really her father? The young lady's mother then folds her hands and claims that, as she thought, the baby is very intelligent and maybe it was from then on that the baby's father became her partner. The woman claims that for her he is a person whom she trusts and loves, and that they also had such a beautiful daughter with him. After which the woman says that the first dress she chooses will give the baby a reliable partner for life. The main character understands that she would not have believed it if in a past life she had been told something like that, because there can't be such luck. However, when her mother said this, for some reason she had hope, even though it would not happen soon. But there is nothing wrong with hope. After which the baby begins to reach for one of the dresses, and the mother, noticing this, is a little happy. The little girl, looking at the fabric more closely, understands that she thought the dress was just white, but it shines with different colors depending on the light. And there are also a lot of different jewelry, and although it is simple, it shines with different colors. And now the little girl understood what her mother's soul desires, because her mother wants her to have many reliable partners. When the girl puts the cloth to her nose, she thinks how delicious it smells, and perhaps in 100 lifetimes of despair, she could neither wish nor hope for this. But now her mother does it for her. The girl understands that 12 months have flown by. And after the party in honor of the first Agu, she was no longer surprised by what followed and was ready for anything. And when the little girl approaches the statue, she understands that she was ready. But this family still goes beyond the imagination. And where could they get such a thing? But then the little girl is greeted by a young man with blonde hair, and she immediately understands that it is his doing. After which the girl turns around and decides to look at something else. The little girl comes up to the cake and thinks how huge it is. But there are 5 floors. The girl also looks at the figurine that is on top and thinks that it could really be her, because her eyes are red. But she was given so many beautiful things for her birthday, and the baby was like in a dream. At this time, the young lady's father tells the little girl to go to them, after which the main character does so. The father takes his daughter in his arms and congratulates her on her birthday. A short time later, the servants were already screaming for them to be allowed to continue to be responsible for the safety of the mistress, and also congratulating the little girl on her birthday. The dark-haired maid claimed that she was so glad that they had been with them for a whole year, after which one of the maids approaches the little girl and asks if she chose her dress for today herself. But there will definitely be good people next to her, just like this dress. The little girl, looking at the servants, understands that after this they will probably get bonuses from Dad, or maybe everything will be different. After all, everyone brings love to the Duke's house and puts their soul into the holiday. Now the little girl understands this well and thinks, isn't she already surrounded by good people? The girl then thanks them all, and thinks to herself that in this life her first birthday is filled with wonderful and special things. Various sliced fruits for easy eating, with pleasant music and many gifts from nobles unknown to her. There was a gift from the Duke, the Count and the Viscount, and from many others, and the little girl thought it was just a family holiday. But again, everything is different, and she wants to hide. Suddenly, someone addresses Anastasia. It turns out it's her father, and the man asks if the little girl will refuse him a dance. The girl thinks about how to do this at her age, and she of course agrees, but is not sure that she will be able to dance. A little while later, the father is already dancing with his daughter, and in the middle of the dance, he bends down on one knee. The baby understands that eye contact is necessary while dancing. Well, then her father lifts the baby up and claims that it is immediately obvious that his daughter already dances so well. And the little girl thinks that she is just hanging in his arms. But if he is happy, then it doesn't matter. The children then run up to them and claim that they also want to dance with Anastasia. And even the boy with the blonde hair says that he also wanted to offer the younger Duchess a dance. The young lady's father claims that his daughter still wants to dance with her dad. But then he sees his wife claiming that since her husband won't offer her his hand, perhaps someone else will. And the man with pink hair then cries out that she should only hold his hand. After that, the main character takes her brother and sister by the hands, and Laura, with a smile on her face, asks if Anastasia likes to dance with her. The young lady's brother tells Lorencia to be a little slower because Anastasia is still young, and the girl agrees. A little while later, the lady with pink hair is already running somewhere and says that she danced to this song last year. The main character can't keep up with her sister and thinks that Laura's endurance is amazing, and now the little girl decides to take a little rest. But then someone turns to her and asks if the younger Duchess would like to dance with him, and the little girl realizes that there is still one left. While the rest of the nobles are dancing in the hall, the main character takes the guy's hand and starts dancing. The blonde-haired boy smiles as her parents and brother and sister also dance. The main character, looking at their smiles, also smiles, and the blonde, noticing this, asks if she really smiled now. But the girl then says no. And when the boy asks about it again, she still answers no. And the boy then says that they will study more, so that the younger Duchess danced as beautifully as she smiled. The main character no longer thinks that he will give up. And although his stubbornness is a little disgusting, it is already less annoying, and so much so that she dances with him as with her family. The party ended in the afternoon, but the parents allowed the servants to have fun until late in the evening. So in the evening, they spent time with the whole family. Lara hugged her sister and asked if she enjoyed dancing with her sister and brother. The little girl then replied that she did, and she herself understood that the year had flown by. And although she is still afraid to get used to the comfort of family, she simply decided to enjoy these precious happy days. The father takes his daughter in his arms and tells Anastasia that today he will put her to bed, and when the man pats his daughter on the pockmark, she slowly begins to fall asleep, but understands that she should not close her eyes. For if she fell asleep like that, something bad would happen again. However, it was already too late, and the young lady again saw in her dreams that child who was welcome to her. He also says how impolite the girl is, and didn't she want to see him because she didn't open the door for a long time? So it seemed to him that it was an invitation. The main character thinks that she didn't invite him, and then tells him to stop and asks who it is. The child then asks if the baby has forgotten him, because if so, then that is quite sad. After which, the main character sees how the appearance of this child becomes an adult, and she understands that this is some kind of man. The guy says that this is how the girl should recognize him, and the little girl thinks that even though they are in the subconscious, he changes his appearance too easily. So the young lady thinks what kind of power he has, because she still won't know who it is. The guy then asks if he should give the little girl a hint, and when the girl looks at her hands and feet, he understands that this is the embodiment of her first life, after which the girl asks how he knows this appearance. And the guy claims that he can easily embody her appearance from the past. And he said that he is the only one who understands her. But then he says that time is up and apologizes for being impudent last time, after which he claims that he will be waiting for her with impatience. And also the moment when the girl finds him. The main character then realizes in shock that this stranger called her name, so she asks him what he just said. But the guy just snaps his fingers, after which the little girl wakes up with a headache and thinks what a disgusting feeling this is. When the girl gets up in her bed and looks at the maid, she sees that she is still asleep, but she thinks that this time he was only there for one night, and it seems that the maid is sleeping peacefully. But what worries her is the name that child called her. And although she had difficulty hearing before leaving, it was definitely her name from her first life. The baby understands that she must not forget anything, but her consciousness is too blurred. After which, she calls Choco and tells him to find traces of that bastard who invaded her sleep. The puppy tells the lady to rely on him and claims that he will return soon, and the lady should rest. But the girl understands that she can't stand it anymore, and is about to lose consciousness. After which, the little girl in her thoughts suggests that the guy meet again because this time she really wants it. So let him come, because she will open the door and she has a lot to ask. But 2 weeks later, sitting on the floor, the main character realizes that this bastard never came. But she called him herself, but he didn't even stick his nose out. The mansion was in chaos because of her fever, so the little girl wonders if this guy knows how hard it is to calm her sister down. And the girl thinks that she needs to calm down and think it over. The first version of what is happening is that the guy may have also been reborn, like her. And the accumulated power allows him to use her past appearance, and he knows about her past life, and can also easily materialize her. This creature insists that it understands her, and there is an explanation for this. Because if she met the reincarnated one, she would also want to get closer to him. But this guy may not be reincarnated, and the second version is that he is the instigator of her reincarnations, like the Absolute or God. Well then, the words about understanding are not suitable. According to this version, he is her enemy. But the girl is not entirely sure about it because why would he come a second time then? At this time, a puppy flies into the room and addresses the lady. The main character then asks if he found out anything, but the puppy apologizes to the lady and claims that he could not find out who it was. And then the little girl asks if he found the place, and the puppy answers that, of course, because the lady gave him a hint, and if he had not found it, he would not have been able to return from shame. Choco claims that the smell was very weak, but he honestly tried and even conquered the mountains. The little girl then asks if it is true that the Axian Empire is beyond the mountains. And Choco answers that it is true, but everything in it was somehow strange and he did not like it, because everything there is different from the pure and beautiful power of the lady. According to the information of the dog, the Axian Empire has many suspicious things, starting with strange magic, ending with the fight for continental supremacy, as well as news about the development of a special magical weapon and that scoundrel. Over the course of a year, the girl puts thoughts about her destiny aside, and she is born at a time when the world is on the brink of destruction. Baby realizes that the Empire is still under suspicion as the main cause of the destruction, and their kingdom is among their targets, so they need to be prepared. Baby decides that she will not just prevent the destruction, and he will defend the peaceful life of his family to the end because this is the only way to repay them for their love. But at that very moment, the main character's sister bursts into the room and says that this is a very urgent matter. So let the little girl get ready as soon as possible, and the main character wonders if the first signs of destruction have already appeared. But she still needs time to prepare because first she needs to check the situation. However, a little while later, the main character is already sitting with a stony expression on her face. Her sister at this time looks out the carriage window and says with a sincere smile on her face that they have a family trip. The main character's family talks among themselves, and the father claims that they chose a place where they could go 2 years ago, after which they ask if Damien remembers. The boy says yes, and the sister asks why she doesn't remember. The main character at this time thinks that she was worried like a real idiot. But in her first life, she heard about summer vacations with her family from friends. The young lady's father tells the children that there is not much time left, and the main character's sister then cries out in delight and claims that she can't wait. The baby's mother asks if she wants to look at the scenery, and Anastasia just nods. After which, the woman lifts her a little higher and tells her to be careful. After which, the girl sees the beautiful scenery of the kingdom and begins to feel an inappropriate excitement. The little girl also thinks that it is worth enjoying the vacation before the destruction of the world begins. After all, suddenly something unexpected will happen during this trip. A little while later, they are already on the lands of the duchy in the village of El. There they are met by a family who asks if they have arrived with their children. The Duke says that it is very hot today and asks if they were waiting for them there. The man then says that they should not worry because they were standing against the wall, and the Duke says that is fine then, and they have some refreshing ice with them, so let them take some. While this family thanks the Duke, the main character sighs and thinks that he really is an outstanding Duke, and she thinks that the conversation will drag on. That's why the little girl thinks that it's time to practice walking, because in the mansion she is always busy with something, so there is no time for it. But the little girl, noticing the looks on herself, wonders why they are staring at her like that. The women only say with admiration that their mistress is only a year old, but she already walks, after which they ask if they hear stomping under her feet and how she learned to walk. They also call the mistress to them and offer candy. Well, the main character remembers how her mother told her that she can be wary of strangers. However, the girl understands that her parents are nearby, so nothing poses a danger. But she will still listen to her mother, after which the little girl turns around and says no need. The women say that nothing can take her, and the girl looks very much like her mother. They all continue to talk and claim that they have sweets and fruits. But the children like them. Another woman tells her friends to look at the baby's chubby cheeks and ask the lady if they can touch them. The baby thinks that she is just learning to walk and does not understand where all this attention is coming from. She even thinks that she will be eaten now. At this time, the young lady's mother comes to Anastasia and says that everything is fine, and let the little girl go to them, after which the girl agrees. She thinks that she is still scared, but if he doesn't say much, then she will come over. After which, the main character approaches the women and extends her hands, which touches them. One of the women asks if they have seen, but the younger lady seems unusual. Another woman claims that the lady is still small, but asks if she can say please. The little girl understands that they themselves invited her, so why ask for such a thing now? The woman hands the girl a watermelon and tells her to hold it tightly and chew it thoroughly. The main character then wonders if she will be okay if she eats this watermelon. But then she decides to take a bite anyway, and she wonders if this is a reward for walking. But it is sweeter and tastier than she thought. The woman then says with a smile on her face that she is glad because the baby liked it. She also claims that this way the girl will be full if she has not eaten a full meal. The main character thinks that she just ate a watermelon and it's such a trifle. And even strangers are happy and it's a really strange world. After all, her 100th life is the most country of all. After which she once again stretches her hands to the woman and asks her father if the baby wants more. And a minute later, the girl is already eating the second watermelon and thinking that she wants to believe that this life is the most ordinary. It's a bit heavy, but filled with warm and bright colors. After this, the Duke and his family approach one of the houses and declares that they will live there for 2 days. The children admire the beauty of the place, and the main character's sister says that she wants to splash in the water. The father says that's fine, but let them change into bathing suits. A little while later, a little girl with pink hair runs up to her parents with a cute hat, and she claims that she is a rabbit. After that, her brother comes into the room. He says with embarrassment that this is a very strange outfit. After him, the main character enters the room. She thinks, don't they usually choose a kitten or a puppy? I don't understand why she is a tiger. Laura approaches her little sister and says that Aja is a very cute tiger cub. She agrees and claims that if Anastasia growls, she will immediately disarm him. The little one understands that she is glad that her brother and sister liked it. At this time, the father calls his children and claims that he will take them on funny boats. The main character then turns around in shock and thinks about what the funny boats mean, after which he sees gorgeous ships with the heads of 3 animals and wonders if he spent money on something like this again. The young lady's brother just says how wonderful it is and they are just gorgeous. The little girl then agrees and then looks at her father, and he thinks that he also loves such events and is also happy with their reaction. The little girl with pink hair screams happily and says that Daddy is the best and he is very cool, and also that she loves Daddy. The man almost cries with joy at this, after which he runs up to his daughter and says that he loves her very much too. And of course he loves Anastasia very, very much, as well as Damien. A young man with pink hair turns to his father and says that he can now splash in the water without getting into a boat himself. The father says that of course he can, and yet he thought the boy would want to have fun with his sisters. After which he extends his hand to the boy and asks if this is not so, and the boy then agrees. A little while later, a little girl with pink hair is sailing with her father on a small boat. She is happy and joyfully cries out that she will be first, and that Dad should push faster. But he only tells his daughter not to hurry. The little girl with pink hair then tells her father that she wants a whoosh. The man says that she will get it soon, but now it's Anastasia's turn. Lara then asks if this is true, because then she will be patient. After which, the father says that this is what was expected from a kind older sister. He lets go of the boat and tells the little girl to wait there for a bit, and the girl tells him to come back quickly, after which he approaches the other guys and asks how long they waited. But suddenly, a very strong wind starts blowing, and the water splashes on them. The main character thinks what kind of unnatural gust of wind this is, and this whole situation is very strange. But suddenly, the young lady's brother notices his sister floating away and screaming Lorencia's name. But at this moment, the girl is already in the middle of the lake and screams, asking for help. While the young lady's father is heading for the little girl with pink hair, the knight holds Anastasia and tells the lady to hold on tighter, and the main character thinks about the strange speed of the flow. And there are a lot of rocks there. So if her sister hits herself while swimming so fast, then most likely she is in danger. After which, the main character extends her hand and tries to use magic. But it dissipates, and the little girl thinks why she can't control it normally. However, she understands that she needs to calm down and first decides to cast a protection spell on the baby. Because if she doesn't stop the boat, then at least her father can reach her. The knight cries out that the wind direction has suddenly changed and tells the Duke that it is dangerous. Well, the man doesn't even listen to them and keeps trying to get to his daughter. He stretches out his hand in the hope of grabbing the boat, and he succeeds. The father grabs his daughter and hugs her tightly. The little girl, unable to hold back her tears, says through her tears that the boat suddenly moved by itself, and she did nothing. The man says that Lorencia did nothing wrong and she listened to her father. The main character then sighs and thinks that thank God everything worked out. She also looks at the others and understands that they most likely did not notice her magic, but she suspects whose hands it is. After all, when her sister's boat went out of control, she felt magic and an unpleasant aftertaste as if someone wanted to penetrate her body. And this is exactly the same bastard who comes into her dreams, so the little girl thinks what a scoundrel he is, because he intended to plunge her sister into eternal sleep. But no matter what his goal, he will never be forgiven for anything. After which, the little girl begins to lose consciousness and fall backwards. The girl understands that she has been strong throughout all her lives. She didn't think she could be weak, but she was already feeling weak like this more than once. And of course, it's all because she used too much mana. The young lady's mother then cries out whether Anastasia has woken up, after which he strokes the baby's head and says that thank God their baby has woken up. The girl only addresses her mother, and the woman immediately hugs her and says that her mother is nearby, after which she asks if she is very ill. But the baby is still too young to be outside for so long. The main character understands that this is not the case at all, and it is all because of that bastard. So she does not understand why her mother blames herself. The little girl then decides that she will definitely catch that bastard. After all, how dare he ruin a small family trip? He tore this time around and does not understand where such an ominous aura came from. However, the main character understands that disaster comes from where it is least expected. The young lady's mother brings her porridge and says it's time to eat, to which the little girl agrees. Well, when she already opens her mouth to eat the porridge, suddenly magic is used on the bowl. And she turns over, and both the baby and mother are a little surprised. The woman then asks the girl if she doesn't like baby food, and Anastasia thinks that it's not fair at all. After all, this scoundrel uses wind magic whenever he wants. The main character understands that she has been starving for so long, so how can she not like food? But this person destroys what is done with love, and even a good-natured mother cannot stand it and gets angry. The girl understands that she has been sick often lately, and she is sure that this irritates the woman. The father at this time exchanges glances with his wife, and the woman claims that their youngest is 13 months old, so the time has come. The main character does not understand what they are talking about, and at this time the father says that, yes, and he thought that this period would go smoothly because the girl is very calm. After which, the young lady's mother turns to her and asks what is wrong or if she is sad, but she cannot say it. But at this age, Damien was often irritated when feeding, and their little one is very similar to her brother. The boy then sheepishly claims that this never happened, and the woman says that everything is fine because he was very sweet and always ready for battle. The kid gets even more embarrassed and says that this really wasn't the case, and Lara then asked if she did the same. To which the father says that their Lorencia ate everything, and the woman adds that the baby had a good appetite, but she cried if they were not around. The girl then asks if she was very little then, and the father says that she still wants mom and dad to be around. And the little girl, hugging her brother, said that this is true, because she loves most of all to be with her mom, dad, brother, and Asha. The father then leans over to the baby and says that she needs to eat, after which he asks if baby food is suitable, and the girl agrees. And she also says that everything is fine, and dad is not angry because she most likely wants to eat something specific, but cannot say about it. The main character, looking at her father, thinks why they are trying to understand her, because usually everyone quarreled even if it was not her fault. And the little girl thinks that she really wants to do only good things for them. Well, after that, the failures happened again and again. These could have been overturned glasses of water. And because of the accumulated power, she even turned into a child who did not want to wash. And eventually, her father got hurt. During this time, she vaguely learned about the intentions of this asshole who appeared in her dreams. He wanted to leave her alone and argued that if the baby was hated by the family, then she would remain alone. The main character understands that he would have succeeded if everything had been the same as before, but not this time, because now the father is talking about Anastasia, that he should be more careful. But then he asks if she is having fun. And the main character understands that there have been many difficulties in her life, but no one before has given her the warmth that this family does. And most likely this is called a normal family. Drawing with crayons, the little girl thinks that in this case, if there is a possibility to save this unusual life, then she swears that she will do everything for this. And the little girl understands that the numbers speak for themselves, and she will consider this life normal. On the way back, the baby was sleeping in her mother's arms. And when I opened my eyes, I saw that they were already very close to the house. The girl understands that despite many difficulties, it was fun, and at the end of the journey, she almost caught that scoundrel, but could not talk to him. He persistently tried to leave her alone, but her family did not give up so easily. And the main character thinks that she has amazing loved ones, because instead of pushing her away, they accept her. And without them, this bastard would have really managed to separate her from everyone. Therefore, this is not her victory, but the victory of the family. And the girl with a smile on her face understands that for the first time in her life, she is loved so much. If you ask Lorencia Endevlan who she likes the most in this world, she will answer without a single doubt. What she loves most is her mother, and in second place is her father. In third place is her brother Damien. But over the past year, the ranking has changed a little because of the younger sister, which looks very much like her mother, and now the little girl runs into the room looking for her sister. She joyfully cries out the name of her beloved little sister, but when she looks at the room, she realizes that the girl is not there. Looking into the other playroom, she also doesn't see her beloved little sister. But when he comes to another room, he sees her there together with that boy with blonde hair. The little girl watches these two and understands that the guy is there again. But Asya is her sister. But Mikhail keeps taking it away. Now the boy turns to Anastasia again and asks if she says she hates him. And the little girl just tells him to go away. And he just asks with a smile if she is driving him away again. But they haven't seen each other for a long time. So he asks if it's too rude and then says that he brought a gift. The little girl says no, and the boy just continues and claims that he missed her and came to spend time with her. The lady with pink hair, hearing this, is already losing her temper. She thinks how bad Mikhail is, and their Asya doesn't love him. But even though she is angry that the guy came, she is still afraid of him. But the girl tried so hard to get closer to him, and he came to meet me halfway. But then the little girl suddenly thinks that Mikhail is torturing Aja while she is not looking. And suddenly he is afraid of her more. And that is why he does not approach the little girl while she is nearby. But if it is not so, then the good Axis has no reason to hate him. After which the lady with pink hair is a little nervous, but thinks that she will save her little sister. And she will be able to save poor Princess Anastasia from the terrible devil Mikhail, because she is her older sister. And a few days later, the little girl came to her younger sister. The main character then turned to her sister and asked if it was her. And the lady with pink hair then ran up to her sister and asked if she missed her, to which the girl only agreed. When the little girl hugged the main character, she thought that she should be sleeping soundly now, and what happened? Usually Lara comes closer to the end of the day, and when Mikhail is there, he only shows up for dinner. And if the guy wasn't so cold to her, then the girl wouldn't avoid him. You baby aren't happy that your sister and brother are giving him their time. But now the lady with pink hair turns to Asha, and when the little girl takes her hand, the girl smiles and says that the little girl grabbed her so that now she won't be able to leave. After which she suggests playing Hey Baby agrees, and the lady with pink hair says that there are many rooms that Asya has not been in yet. Therefore, they will go on an expedition to the mansion. The main character, thinking about this, understands that although she asked her puppy to follow the mansion, she personally did not see anything. The servants nearby get a little worried and then say that this is a great idea and they will go too. The maid says that's true and she'll make a snack. But the little girl with pink hair shakes her head and says that's not possible, since from his day on they'll only go together. The knight then asks why and if they want to look for the treasure. But the girl says it's a secret. And when the maid turns to them and says that if they don't take her with them, they won't be able to have a snack, the little girl then gets a little tense and thinks about it. But after that, she only claims that everything is fine because during the expedition you can go hungry, and since Lara is the older sister, she will endure. The main character in the form of this thinks how cute her sister is. And the lady with pink hair then turns to the little girl and asks if she also wants to go just the two of them, to which the girl agrees. Then the lady with pink hair picks up her bag and says she knew it. And taking the little girl by the hand, he suggests they set off on their journey. A little while later, Mikhail, with wet hair, enters the room and addresses the younger lady. But when he opens the door and sees more, the baby is not there. The guy thinks that something just happened because she is not in the room and now he has a bad feeling. The little girl with pink hair at this time looks at her homemade map and suggests going in one direction. The main character turns around and thinks that sister doesn't understand at all, that it is completely impossible to go on an expedition around the house together. And the main character hopes that there won't be more people. A little while later, the lady with pink hair turns to the cashier and says that they have arrived at the first room for research. Well, when the main character looks at the door to the room, she thinks that some kind of ominous aura is coming from it. A little girl with pink hair knocks on the door, after which the butler opens it and asks what they wanted. But then he sees two little mistresses and asks what happened. And the little one with pink hair claims that they came to see Daddy because Asha hasn't seen him at work yet, after which she asks if they can come in. The butler then apologizes and says that the Duke is very busy now. The new man just opens the doors with all his might, causing the butler to almost fall, after which the father, with a smile on his face, asks if he misses his child and his dad. The main character realizes that it seemed to her that there was a strange aura in this room, but after they enter the office, they see very tired workers who can barely breathe. One of them sits in a desperate pose, and the second one has his hands on his head and a dark aura seems to emanate from them. The main character, looking at them, thinks that she was not imagining things, and she even sympathizes with these workers. They rise from their seats like ghosts and greet the mistress, after which they ask if they want delicious sweets, because there is also flower tea, which the second mistress loves. The Duke then puts his hand on their shoulders and says that he will ask the butler about it, and that they should return with a report in 2 hours. The workers cannot refuse their boss and leave. The father turns to his daughters again and asks what they wanted. The little one with pink hair claims that they wanted to see how cool Daddy is when he works. The man then asks if the girl really thinks so, and the kid says yes, and he's also cool when he does a whoosh whoosh with his sword. And then the man suggests going to the training ground, but the little girl only screams that it's not allowed. And the man then leans over and asks dejectedly, why? When she says that Daddy is cool when he goes whoosh whoosh with his sword, but she doesn't want to watch. And the little girl claims that it's because she and Aja are exploring the mansion today, and they can't leave it because the expedition site is there. The main character wonders if Mikhail isn't at the training ground right now, and that's most likely why Sister doesn't want to. And after that, the little girl also claims that they won't stay there for long, and the father then asks in shock, why? And the girl claims that her mother forbids them to distract him from work, and the man says that they don't distract him at all. Well, the lady with pink hair says that Daddy can't, because he himself said that good children shouldn't do things that Mommy doesn't like. And so Lara ate peppers and spinach today, and even if he wants to play with them, he has to work and be good. The main character, looking at this, remembers how her mother told the little girl with pink hair not to do that next time, and most likely the girl teaches her father discipline, just like her mother. The little girl then asks if he understands that Dad is a good adult. The main character can no longer hold back her laughter and apologizes to her sister in her thoughts. But she can no longer restrain herself because the baby is very cute, so the main character laughs sincerely. This makes the father and the lady with pink hair delighted. They immediately wave their hands and say that Aja smiled. The father asks if he imagined it. The man also pokes the little girl on the cheek and asks if she finds it funny that they are scaring her. But Anastasia thinks that she doesn't and that her little sister is just very cute. The lady with pink hair then turns to her father and asks why he is setting a bad example for the little girl, but the man waves his hands and says that he is not doing anything like that. However, the girl says that Asha completely agrees with her. And if Dad wants praise, then he has to do what he doesn't like. And Lara, as the older sister, knows everything. The main character understands that this is not entirely true and then mentally apologizes to her dad. But she agrees with her little sister, which makes her happy, and asks if Dad heard. And the little girl thinks that the most important thing now is her sister's smile. After which, the lady with pink hair hugs her little sister, and a little while later they are already leaving the father's office, who is not very happy about this, and also claim that they have moved on. The lady with pink hair holding a map in her hands asks where they are going now, and the main character, looking at the baby's bag, thinks that it is full of snacks. And the girl even made the map herself, so the little girl thinks that her little sister was preparing so she could play with her. And they couldn't play often because Mikhail came, so the little girl apologized to her in her thoughts. But suddenly the main character trips over her foot and begins to fall to the floor. But Anastasia can't do anything and just puts her hand in front of her. The lady with pink hair notices this and becomes very worried about her sister and screams her name. But when the girl approaches her sister, it is already too late because the baby is lying on the floor. While the lady with pink hair asks how Aja is, her mother approaches them and turns to Anastasia. Lara says that she did not do it on purpose, and the woman tells her daughter that she knows, but claims that Anastasia is still too small and needs to walk more slowly, after which she asks if the baby can do this from her. Lara then agrees, but she still feels very guilty. Well, the main character decides to cheer her up and pats her on the shoulder. The little girl cannot hold back her tears from such actions and starts crying loudly. She realizes that even though her sweet little sister patted her, she still got upset and started crying. The girl thinks that she wasn't a great big sister that day, but next time the little ones will show only their best side. After all, if Asha is a princess, then Lara is her knight. And since the kind younger sister consoles her, she will be a knight for her for as long as necessary. Because she is the older sister, now Lara takes her little sister by the hand, and when the little one almost falls again, then the lady with pink hair asks if everything is okay and confirms it. WHAT now, so that the baby does not fall, she will hold her tightly. Accompanied by the older sister, a serious exploration of the mansion began. They enjoyed the fire show in the kitchen, and the chef claimed that he would show them his best dish. After that, they went to have tea with their mother in the garden and played hide and seek, hiding in the laundry hung out by the maids. The girls ran happily through the vastness of the mansion, and the last place for today was the children's library. The lady with pink hair read a book dividing the words into parts. And the main character understands that, unlike her brother, the swamp one is so soft and calm. Anastasia really likes it because it resembles the sounds of a beautiful summer day. The main character begins to close her eyes and wonders if it is because of the long walk and the amount of food she ate. But she really wants to sleep. And after that, the little girl finally gives in and falls asleep. The lady with pink hair at this time finishes reading and asks Anastasia if they should read another book. But not hearing an answer, she looks at her little sister and wonders what happened. But then she sees the baby sleeping peacefully on the floor and wonders if she's really asleep. The girl, when she wonders with admiration if it was she who lulled her to sleep, after which she approaches Anastasia and asks if she is her little sister. Looking at the baby's sleeping face, she thinks how cute Anastasia is, and that she is only her younger sister, not Mikhail's sister. When a girl puts her finger on the baby's hand, the baby grabs it. A little while later, the main character is already sleeping with her little sister, and someone covers them with a blanket. It turns out to be Damien, and he asks if they came there alone, but they didn't tell him. After which, he also adjusts the pillows under the heads of his sisters, and he puts one for himself, after which he climbs under their blanket and says that this expedition is for two, but asks if they can take him too. So, for almost a week, they wandered around the mansion. The baby rarely, it happened in her room during the daytime, but there is one thing that worries her and Art Mikhail, who came to the room and asked if the younger Duchess was in the room, and today, after all, where could she go? The maid claimed that they had gone on an expedition around the mansion, and the boy had asked if Damien knew where they could go, but he also said that he wanted to play with the baby too. Now the puppy claims that the boys said so, and he also had a very sad face every time he came there. So Choco asks if the boy has succumbed to the charms of the devil lady. The main character realizes that she didn't want to do that, but she managed to avoid him. This wouldn't have happened if she had spent enough time with the whole thing from the start. But she's sorry she had to make the guy wait so long, and tomorrow she'll tell her sister to take the day off from the expedition. Well, the next day, when the lady with pink hair came to her room again with a joyful smile, then she again suggested going on an expedition, after which she began to take out chocolate and other things that she had prepared from her bag. The main character then thought how she could refuse, and Mikhail might feel a little sad. The girl showed the young lady where they would go with her today, and she only agreed. But suddenly she heard someone else's footsteps, and when this person entered the room, he told them to wait. It turned out to be Mikhail, and he said that he would also go on an expedition. The guy claimed that he wanted to take a walk with the younger mistress and that he had everything he needed for the expedition, so he tells Mrs. Lorencia to take him because he will be useful. The main character, looking at her sister's expression, wonders if she's okay. And the guy keeps talking and claims that if he joins, well, the lady with pink hair interrupts him and screams that he can't. The main character is shocked by this, and the young man with blonde hair is too. The boy then asks why not answer. He will be useful. But the little girl with pink hair says that they do not need anyone, because only she and Asha can. The boy once again turns to Mrs. Lorencia and claims that he has prepared, so he asks why not. But suddenly the little girl turns to him and tells him not to bother. And the guy says that he is not bothering anyone, to which the little girl replies that he is bothering, and the boy asks if he really looks that bad, to which the girl agrees. The guy then gets a little upset, and the main character thinks that he is cold and indifferent to her sister's feelings. So what is that expression on his face now? Anastasia then says that he can't, and the guy just leans towards her and asks if she's against it too. After all, he learned a lot from Damien, and is he really not allowed to be with them? The little girl then wonders if this is important now, and the lady with pink hair screams that Mikhail is not her brother. The guy then looks coldly at the lady with pink hair and asks what she is talking about, and the main character thinks that he is looking at her sister like that again. But she is much easier to hurt than him. The lady with pink hair screams that no matter how much the guy repeats after his brother, he will not become him. But the boy only asks why not. And the young lady's sister then screams that Asha doesn't love him. But the lady with pink hair then says that he is only asking questions and then claims that Anastasia hates him. But he continues to play with her, and the baby loves her because she is her sister. The main character, looking at her little sister, thinks that she is seeing her like this for the first time. And then she looks at the young man with blonde hair and thinks that they are having her déjà vu. After all, he had a similar face during his fight with Damien, so the little girl is wondering whether she should cry again. But the girl understands that this is a different case, and if she cries, then their relationship, on the contrary, will worsen. The lady with pink hair will then say that Asha is crying and it's all because of Mikhail, and that they need to be reconciled first. Well, the boy then interrupts the young lady's thoughts and says that the younger Duchess hates him, which surprises the little girl a little. The boy only turns to the young lady and says that she never seriously told him to leave, and that is true. The main character wonders if he thinks so because she just said to move away, and the guy doesn't hear the answer. He says that it seems so, but the little girl thinks that she didn't even answer. So why did he think so? The lady with pink hair then turns to her little sister and says that Asha loves her little sister more than Mikhail, to which the little girl agrees. The guy claims that he never said that the younger Duchess loves him more. She just hates him. Therefore, he asks once again to be taken on the expedition. But the little girl screams again that no, and this is a secret expedition just for the two of them. The guy then suggests that they keep the secret between the three of them and not tell Damien about it. But the little girl with pink hair screams again that no. She already with tears in her eyes, shaking hair, claims that she has already refused. After which she asks, what is he continuing with? The girl says that she hates him because he plays with his brother every day, but not with her. And now he also wants to take Asha away. The main character tries to calm her little sister down, and the lady with pink hair says that Asya is her sister, not Mikhail's. After which, she also turns to her mother and tells her to kick Mikhail out because she wants to play with Asha. Hey, baby, her sister. Mikhail, he doesn't even know what to do with this and stands there in a stupor. At this time, the main character notices someone standing in the corridor and realizes that it is her mother. But looking again, she sees that everyone has come, but she doesn't understand why they don't come in. And looking at her mother's face, she thinks that perhaps she wants these two to sort this out on their own. After all, it is useless to interfere in the affairs of children until they understand the problems. And besides, if the family interferes, Mikhail will feel alienated. Despite his maturity and seriousness, the boy is only a 6-year-old child. Mikhail communicates with their family at the request of his grandfather. But it is difficult for a child who recently lost his parents to fit into this environment. The young lady's good brother understands him and comes to meet him halfway, but not the sister. And now the blonde's wounds are slightly pressed. However, he still does not understand that his sister is in pain because of him. The baby does not tell others what she does not like and is always upset by other people's mistakes, and also tries to console others, and she is truly a person with an angelic character. The girl extended her hand to him several times, but Mikhail kept pushing her away. And now the main character, looking at the worried guy, thinks that this time she will not help for the sake of him and her sister. So let Mikhail figure it out himself. The boy remembers how the little girl extended her hand to him, and several times she suggested that we play together and also become friends. The guy was wondering why she was so happy, because he wasn't having fun at all. Looking at the girl's smile, he understood that she knew no loss and knew no evil. The pink-haired lady's brother asked Mikhail if he wanted to get along with his sister. The guy claimed that he would like to, but the girl was avoiding him, and Damien then suggested trying to reach out first, because that would definitely work. And now the boy clutches his shirt tighter and tighter, after which he turns to Mrs. Lorencia and asks him to forgive her. The guy gets down on one knee and says that he didn't know that he was hurting her, then asks why she hates him. The lady with pink hair just looks at Mikhail in surprise, and he doesn't understand why. And I repeat once again that he really feels very sorry in front of Mrs. Lorencia. The little girl then remains silent for a while and thinks over everything he said, after which she says that she is Lara, and the girl claims that she does not like being called mistress. After all, even the knights and maids call her Lara, and he alone calls her differently. The blonde then asks if his girlfriend will forgive him and if he will call her Lara, and the lady with pink hair then says yes, if Asha doesn't mind. The main character heard these words and rejoiced. And then these two looked at her, after which the little girl says that she doesn't mind. But looking at her sister, she wonders if the girl with pink hair is really upset. But the main character extends her hand and understands that she still won't tell about it, after which she kisses her little sister on the cheek, which makes her very surprised. The lady with pink hair then hugs her little sister and asks if she loves her more than anyone else, but that's not strange since she is the older sister. The little girl simply agrees in response to this, and that same evening they are already sitting at a table covered with all sorts of delicious things. The young lady's mother turns to Mikhail and tells him to eat more. The boy thanks for the invitation to dinner and says that he will eat everything. And the young lady's mother recalls how she recently told her husband that it turns out they won't have to interfere because the children have made up. But the man with pink hair asked the dear if she thought everything would be okay. The woman said that, yes, and children also need time, and they believe that they are Lorencia's parents. The young lady's mother then turned to her husband and asked if he was building a little because of Mikhail. The man didn't even know what to answer. The lady with black hair then claimed that this was precisely why they did not interfere, and of course, if it had been a serious quarrel, they would have had to. But this time their task was simply to observe. The main character is now mentally apologizing for overhearing the conversation, but she thinks that they are such good adults, and she is glad that these people are her parents. The girl understands that they remind her of her old mentor. He spent a lot of time with her, but he was the only person she could call a teacher, and when it was necessary to be strict, he was like that. And when it was necessary to hit softly, he was. The man turned to his foolish student and told her to swear that she would not go into the flames alone. This was his last will. And although the girl did not make a promise, she still could not keep it. Memories of that time break her heart, and she is afraid that she will give away her whole soul again and it will hurt. Well, the girl thinks that this time everything will be fine, but she is still worried. The young lady's brother turns to her at this time and asks if she can take the tomato, because if so, it will help. Mikhail, observing this, immediately intervenes in the conversation and begins to put more and more food on the baby's plate. He asks if she wants to eat it, but Damien says no, and Anastasia can't eat such big snacks yet. The guy, looking at all this, says that she believes her teeth have already come out, but the young lady's brother says that not all of them have come out yet. The little girl looks at the mountain of food and thinks that she won't be able to eat it and that the guy is really trying to irritate her on purpose. Damien turns to his friend and says that Anastasia is still a child, and if this is a convention, she will cry. The blonde then asks if this is true, after which he turns to the little girl and asks her to forgive him. He asks if Anastasia will forgive him, and the girl, looking at him, is a little surprised, and she thinks that he really gets on her nerves. But when she is near him, everything inside her shrinks, and it is very strange. And the plus side to the fact that they made peace was that he was eventually taken on the expedition. It's October, and the busy time before Thanksgiving and many other holidays has begun. The girl understands that on such days, she can walk calmly even after the reconciliation of Mikhail and her sister. They all started playing together, and today their games were prepared by the knights. Now, one of the knights claims that the game is called Find the Treasure. The lady with pink hair then asks with eyes full of admiration if they will look for treasure. And the knight claims that they will split into pairs and those who bring back more treasures will win. The lady with pink hair then asks what she will get if she wins. The knight then claims that if the duke wins, he will be able to challenge the lord to a fight. And the boy at the same moment turns to the main character and asks if she will say that he is cool if he hits the duke 3 times. And the little girl wonders if he still hasn't given up. But since this is the desire of a 6-year-old child, she decides to agree. And the young man with blonde hair asks if this is true, but the little girl wonders what he is so happy about. And again, she fell asleep in front of him. Because after that incident, she stopped telling Mikhail that she didn't like him. After all, she realized that the words she uttered out of disgusting habit came from her sister's mouth during an argument with Mikhail. And the little girl understood that it was only her fault. Because if a person looks normal, it doesn't mean that he's really okay. And with Mikhail, you need to behave in a special way, like with a child, after which they swear on their little fingers. And Mikhail asks if she promises what the baby will agree to, after which they were divided into teams, and Anastasia and Mikhail ended up in the second team. The boy then told the little girl to take care of him, to which the girl agreed. And the blonde guy then claimed that he would definitely win for the sake of both of them. Well, at least he said so. But now they are walking slowly, and the boy is showing the little girl beautiful flowers. He also points to the butterflies, and the main character thinks that for some reason he led her down the wrong path. At this time, the main character hears her sister screaming that they found it, and the girl wonders if Mikhail really wants to win, after which she turns to the boy. And here only a smile on her face asks whether the little girl is worried about him. The main character thinks that she is not talking about this, but the guy says that. Of course. After which he grabs one of the leaves that falls from the trees and hands it to the main character. The girl, looking at this leaf, is a little surprised and wonders why he gave it to her. And the guy claims that they haven't played together for a long time, so now he's fine. And he is also confident. The main character is a little surprised by such words, and the boy then asks if they should go further. After which he claims that in fact, during the morning training, he saw what the knights were doing. And the main characters do not think what a sly one he is. She thought that Mikhail would be in a hurry, but now he is acting like a brother. The blonde claims that Damien told him earlier that if the child wants to see or do something, he cannot say it directly. So his friend advised him to be more attentive to the baby during games. After all, butterflies, flowers, leaves, and snow are things that the little girl has never seen before. The main character then thinks about her brother and says his name. And the blonde guy at this time says that he will study hard to become a good older brother like Damien. After which he asks if the baby can pronounce his name too. The main character is a little surprised by such a request, after which she does so. But the boy then asks if she said so, and the little girl says that she doesn't hate him. The blonde then asks if it's true that she doesn't hate him, and the little girl answers Mikhail yes. After that, a light breeze starts to blow, and the baby closes her eyes from this. And when she opens them, she is very surprised. After all, the boy, with a sincere smile on his face, asks if she will then become his younger sister. The girl then just turns away and thinks that the same guy is a fool, because she was hers from the very beginning. A little while later, the guy deftly climbs onto a tree branch. When he grabs it, he climbs a little higher and sees a box there, after which he jumps off and tells the little girl what he found. And the main character wonders how one can hide treasures from children in such a place. The knight then says that the boy really did climb up there, and the main character thinks that they probably thought that the children would ask the knight to get the treasure because it was too high. Well, it looks like the boy is having fun, and that's good. A little while later, they already found 6 pieces, and the brother and sister have collected 5 so far, so the main character thinks that time is running out, and most likely they will win. But at this time, someone approaches her, and it turns out to be Mikhail with another box. He turns to the little girl and asks her to tell him that he is a good boy. The main character thinks that he seems to be behaving especially stupidly with her today, and this is not a difficult request, and she feels guilty in front of him. So the little girl pats the guy on the head and says that he is a good boy. The girl also thinks that she does not want to upset the person who is so happy about a simple gesture. A little while later, the knights are already holding gifts in their hands and saying that the Duke and Lady Anastasia have won. The lady with pink hair then smiles and says that it is a pity, but congratulates Anastasia. And the knight then claims that since Mrs. Lara and Mr. Damien also found treasures, they can take them for themselves as a prize. The little girl with pink hair then asks in shock if she really can, and the knight replies that of course. And now the prizes are being received by Ms. Anastasia and Mr. Damien. Damien's prize is new boots, and Anastasia's is a hat in the shape of a knight's helmet. After that, the knight held out the gift to Mrs. Little Pink-Haired, and when she opened his toast, she asked with delight if it was really for her. The knights replied that of course the lady wanted them too. It turned out to be leather armor for a child, and the baby was hugging it. She says that she likes it very much. The main character remembers how the little girl said that she also wanted clothes like the knights. Her mother asked if the little girl wanted them, and the girl claimed that yes, she is a knight and therefore must wear such clothes. The main character understands that the knights remembered these words, and now Lorencia claims that Asia is a princess, and she will save her. Now the knights suggest playing in the treehouse next time, and the young lady's brother says that this is a great idea, and after the harvest festival, it can be done. And as promised to Michael, the young lady's father accepted the challenge to fight. Now the blonde tells the little girl to be sure to keep her promise, to which the girl agrees. And the guy smiles in response to this, and the main character wonders if she has really gotten used to him and now the guy is not as disgusting to her as before. When the fight begins, Mikhail delivers his first blow and thinks that there are 2 more left. Then the boy smiles, and the young lady's father thinks that he only has to look at him and the fight will continue. And receiving another blow, the boy steps back, but he still decides not to give up and again stands firmly on his feet. Swinging his sword and once again before the young lady's father, the pink-haired man says that the boy's skills have grown greatly, and he even begins to get nervous. But he claims he won't give up so easily. The main character wonders if the father is being too serious with a 6-year-old child, and the little girl thinks that her father clearly has high hopes for Mikhail. The fight is still going on, and when the young lady's father sees that the boy is already tired, he asks why they don't finish it slowly. Well, the boy then asks the gentleman to fight a little longer, and the young lady's father tries to object. However, the boy says that he still won a little bit in the treasure hunt, after which he suddenly jumps up from his seat and runs with all his might towards the young lady's father. And while he was losing his vigilance, the boy wounded him. Everyone in the room is in shock, including the main character. They scream Mikhail's name, and the boy, seeing that he was still able to win, smiles sincerely, and he says that he won after all. After which he bows before the Duke and puts his sword aside and then immediately heads towards the main character. A young man with blonde hair and a smile on his face asks if the little girl saw that he struck her 3 times. The main character thinks that he really was able to defeat his father. And then she sighs and realizes that a promise is a promise, after which she calls the guy cool. The boy heard this, does not believe his ears, and stands in a stupor. But then he immediately tilts his head back as if trying not to cry and calm down. After which he looks at the baby again and asks if he can then be considered her brother. Anastasia is a little surprised by such words and then looks away. And she thinks it's so embarrassing, but the guy is already hers, like a brother. On the eve of Thanksgiving, Mikhail went home for 3 weeks. The blonde boy claimed he would be back for Damien's birthday, but the little girl thought he was always at their mansion, so she forgot his home wasn't there. Damien's birthday. And the Duke then states that he will soon send him an invitation, but let the boy tell him not to overexert himself. Michael then bows and says good to the Duke, after which he looks at the baby. And with a smile on his face, he whispers that he will return soon, and their main character only nods in response. The whole family of the young lady looks at her in surprise, and when the boy leaves and waves to them, then the main character's father waves back at him with a smile. Well, and then he coldly claims that their youngest is too cute and that her father is the problem. A little while later, the main character thinks that time has flown by and Thanksgiving has arrived. Now the little pink-haired girl is screaming in delight, and the young lady is thinking that it is different from the spring festival with many colorful flowers. The autumn festival is filled with various delicacies. Now the little girl with pink hair says how delicious everything looks, and the main character thinks that this is a holiday for the people who have experienced many difficulties during the year. The whole family put on simple clothes and mingled with the people to enjoy the festive atmosphere. And now the young lady's sister offers the little girl another treat, but the girl says she is full. As the little girl continues her way, she turns to the girl and thinks that sister can't eat because she's worried about her. Lara says that she's ashamed to eat alone, and when one of the maids tells the mistress to eat with her, the little girl thinks that it would be nice to spend some time with her brother, and everything will be fine if there is a maid next to Lara. After that, she and her brother approach the pumpkin tower, and the boy with pink hair asks if the little girl wants to look at it, after which she nods. The guy understands that the little girl is usually not interested in such things, but it seems she really liked the tower. He says with a smile on his face that the tower is very high and it is difficult to see the whole thing, so he offers to lift the baby. But suddenly he hears parents nearby saying that their children liked the tower made of joints. The father then says that when Damien was little, and the boy at this time understands that it is his parents again. And lately they often tell shameful things about him in front of their sisters, things he doesn't even remember. So the guy goes to them and thinks, "How do you stop your parents?" After which he turns to his mother. Well, she only claims that there were only 3 of them then, and Damien was interested in everything around him. So when she literally turned away for a second, the guy suddenly disappeared and scared her a lot. The boy's father replies that it is true and that he made his mother worry a lot. The main character notices that her brother is squeezing her hand tighter. The girl thinks that this will cause bruises, after which she turns to her brother. But seeing his face, she understands that it is not worth saying now that she is in pain. The father still continues his story and claims that everyone split up and looked for the guy, but they did not even hear him cry. And he was so worried that his mother would faint from excitement. Well, they found him. And the guy was hiding near the tower and the joints, and he was also grumbling that it was their mistake and he couldn't cry. Suddenly, the young lady's brother starts dragging her somewhere and the main character turns to look at her parents. Those who are still busy talking think that now is not the time to look at pumpkins. As they go further, the main character sees her older sister with cookies. Well, the little girl doesn't understand where the maid who is next to her has gone. But in such a crowd, you can't see anything. And although everyone was having fun just now, for some reason, the young lady now has a bad feeling, and she thinks that someone will definitely get lost. A little while later, these two are already approaching one of the trees, and the boy with pink hair asks if his parents like to embarrass him like this with things he doesn't remember. The main character looks at her brother and thinks that he is a smart future heir to the duchy, and she doesn't know anything about the boy's childhood until he was 6, so it's hard to imagine that her brother was very little, as his parents say. But for them, the guy is always a beloved son, and naturally they think he is cute. But it seems like the brother doesn't like to look like a little child in front of them, so much so that he ran away holding her hand. The guy now claims that he should be a role model, and the main character, looking at his face, now understands what he is thinking about. Well, the young man then turns to Anastasia and looks at her hand. He sees that a red mark has appeared there from his grip. The guy immediately feels guilty and leans towards his sister, apologizing to her, after which he asks why she didn't cry, and also asks why she doesn't say anything when something like this happens. The girl then only asks if she is bad, but the guy claims that no, and she is not bad. He claims that he is not talking about this and also did not know that she was in pain, so he apologizes, after which he hugs his little sister and asks her to just speak up if she feels uncomfortable. The little girl turns to her brother and he says that he is to blame, but the little girl claims that everything is wrong and he is not to blame. The boy is surprised by this, but suddenly he hears someone calling them. The little girl wonders if something happened to her sister, and the guy picks her up in his arms and says that they will run and will also shake her a little, while the young lady's mother asks where everyone has disappeared to and thinks about what will happen if something bad happens, and the father claims that the knights will definitely find them. Damien runs up to them, and when the parents turn around, they see their son with the little girl, who asks where Lorencia is. The mother then just hugs her son and asks where they ran off to, After all, they were so worried. The boy is silent then, and when his mother lets them out of her embrace, she claims that it turns out that the maid is looking for Lorencia. So he asks what has already happened. The parents look at each other and say that she decided to play hide and seek, and that's why they're looking for her. And the main character understands that this is a lie, and her mother lied on purpose so as not to worry them. But the little girl still thinks about what really happened. She uses her powers and thinks that there are a lot of people at the festival, and this makes her even more worried. After which, a puppy appears in the air and turns to the lady. After which he asks why she didn't call him for so long, and is his help really no longer needed, since she didn't call him for a whole week. But the little girl only turns to the puppy and says that her sister is missing, and if he finds her, she will not return him back for 3 days. The puppy is surprised by this and immediately sets off on his way. He claims that he will return soon, and the main character thinks that with him, finding her sister is a matter of time. At this time, the boy turns to his mother and says that he too will look for his sister. And the main character thinks that she can't leave things like this with her brother because she has no experience in family matters and she doesn't know what to do. The boy then turns to Anastasia and says that his little sister is playing hide and seek, after which he asks if the little girl wants to look for her with him. The girl then thinks that her brother also guessed about everything and nods her head. Well, then the puppy turns to her and points to the tower with pumpkins, screaming that her sister is over there. The little girl looks at the pumpkin tower and then says the words of the pumpkin. The brother then asks if she is talking about pumpkins, because if so, he will take her later. But the little girl continues on her way and points at them. When she already approaches the tower from the pumpkins, she thinks that it is too high and disappearance. So how could the baby get there? The girl also thinks whether to use magic. But if she does so, the tower will collapse, and her brother at this time asks Anastasia what happened. At this time, a young lady with pink hair is sleeping in the pumpkin tower. She wakes up and wonders if this is the voice of Batik. But when she opens her eyes, she realizes where she is and immediately starts crying. Brother, hearing this, asks Lorencia if it is, after which he immediately asks if Lorencia is inside. And the lady with pink hair then screams her brother's name. The main character thinks thank God he realized that her sister is there. The guy then climbs up the pumpkins and says that he will release the little pink-haired girl, but that she should not move because it is dangerous and should wait a little. After which he already extends his hand and tells Lorencia that he is there. The guy also looks at his little sister, asking if she can reach his hand. When the baby comes closer, the guy tells her to put her hand out first. And when she does so, the guy says that she is great, but that she should be careful. The main character, seeing how the tower shakes a little, thinks that it is dangerous, and that her brother should safely save his sister. Then she decides to carefully help him, and a little while later, the baby finally manages to get out. She immediately hugs her brother. And the guy then asks why the little sister climbed up there. And the little girl claims that mom and dad said that he once climbed into a pumpkin tower and she became interested. The guy then understands the full danger of those stories told by his parents. And at this time, parents run to their children and ask how the kids are. Lara says that she is fine, and then the parents breathe a sigh of relief. However, the young lady's brother says that he needs to tell them something. Then the parents approach them and ask where their daughter was. And she claims that she was in the pumpkin tower. The woman then says that she and Damien are so similar that they can immediately see that the girl is her sister. Well, the young lady's brother then covers her ears and tells her to wait a little, after which he turns to his parents and states that he is very grateful that they cherish the memories of his childhood, but he would like them not to talk about his mistakes in front of his sisters. The boy's father then asks if he was embarrassed, but the guy then can't stand all this and screams that this is not the main thing, because the girls think that his actions were correct and repeat after him. The parents are then a little stunned by their son's answer, and the guy claims that he wants his sisters to follow only a good example. He also tells his mom and dad what he thinks, and they understand what he means. And my father himself always said that you can only make a mistake once. The man is a little surprised by this. And the boy then opens his sister's ears and apologizes, after which he asks if her ears hurt. The main character, looking at her brother, thinks that he looks relieved, and it seems that his torment has passed on to his father. And the girl, looking at her father, who is almost crying, thinks whether it is necessary to console the adults too. The little girl, while in the carriage, says that when she heard her brother climbing into the Tower of Joints, she thought it was very fun inside. And the young lady's mother then says that this is how it is. But the brother then turns to Lorencia, and he tells her to always say where she is going to go in the future. And the little girl agrees. The woman whispers that it would be good if their firstborn did the same, which makes the boy a little tense. Well, and then looking at each other, they both smile, and the guy agrees with his mother. After that, the parents talk to the brother again. The boy claimed that he was very embarrassed in front of his sisters, so he didn't like all of this. After which he suggested leaving these conversations only between them, and the parents agreed. After which they asked if the boy wanted to spend a little more time with his mom and dad. The little girl understands that although everything ended well, her parents were very worried. And she was worried that her 7-year-old brother behaved like a little child. But everything ended well. Now the main character is watching all this through Choco and says that he is a great guy. As the little girl promised, she spent 4 days with him. But when Mikhail returns, she won't be able to call on him for some time. Remembering how the boy asked if the little girl had a puppy, the girl wondered why the guy was seeing him. But the puppy now claims that he is so happy and asks if he can stay with the girl a little longer and continue to sleep with the devil and also protect her while she eats. But the main character says that it is impossible for the puppy to immediately break loose and asks why. Because he simply will not let this little Duke near her. Because this brat is 1 tooth away from him, and Choco is the only power of the magnificent and majestic devil. The main character thinks that if she doesn't call the puppy, things won't get any worse because this isn't such a harsh world. But after that, she claims that she needs Mikhail for now, and the puppy then asks if she really has some great plan, to which the girl replies that she does. But she herself thinks that in fact she doesn't have any plan. But in any case, she alone can prevent the destruction of the world, but she does not want to die. After all, it's been so long since she last hesitated. Aha. The puppy then turns to his mistress and asks if this nasty boy is one of the candidates for the devil's assistant. After all, then nothing can be done, and since the lady is thinking of taking a subordinate, then he will become Choco's student. After all, Choco is the mistress's best first assistant, and if it is that impudent brat, then he should educate him well so that he obeys the mistress. The main character only smiles in response to this. And then she pets her puppy, but in her thoughts she apologizes to Mikhail, and she thinks that they will probably never be in such a relationship. At this time, she watches her sister and brother playing outside, and he thinks that it would be good if everything remained just as calm and peaceful. At this time, Mikhail's grandfather sits with papers and says that this news is truly stunning. But suddenly he hears someone knocking on the door, and the boy claims that it is Mikhail, after which he asks if he can come in. The man then places this document under the others and tells him to come in. Damien's birthday. The guy is now saying that there is no need to throw a party for his birthday because the holiday of sealing is coming up. October 31st is the day when God sealed the devil. And since this was a big event, her adult brother again tried to give in. However, his mother says that it is good to have many days to celebrate and she does not want to miss any of them. However, when the boy tries to object, then his mother asks him not to take such joy away from her. To which the guy agrees, and the main character understands that for this reason they were preparing for 2 holidays, the day of sealing and the brother's birthday. And Mikhail Leventis returned again for the approaching celebration. The boy is now holding picture books for children in his hands and says that he brought this especially for the little girl. The main character is already reading one of them. And the boy claims that 3 weeks have passed and the girl was still washing. The little girl thinks that he hasn't even arrived yet, as he is already chatting, after which she shakes his hand. The boy then says that he is glad to see that the younger Duchess has not come to hate him more, and the girl thinks what nonsense he is talking about. And yet he continues to see her as a little child. But when the boy takes the baby's hand in his, he kisses it. No, he missed the younger Duchess and looked at her, but suddenly someone turned to Michael, and the boy shudders at this. This man claims that the boy did not greet the Duke and immediately ran to the younger Duchess. It turns out that this is Mikhail's grandfather, and he asks if this is what he taught the boy. The boy immediately gets up from his seat and tells the girl that no. And the girl says that then he should go out, and the boy agrees. The main character realizes that this is the first time she has seen such a nervous Mikhail, and that man is his grandfather, Archduke Leventis. The man then makes eye contact with the young lady and then turns around, after which he apologizes to the younger lady and claims that he will officially introduce himself later. And the little girl thinks that the rumors are true and he is very cold. But the man could have simply sent a servant to call Mikhail. That's why she doesn't understand why Mikhail's grandfather came in person. Today, the dinner was with Archduke Leventis, and the table was richer than usual. The young lady's father thanks the Archduke for coming despite his busy schedule. Well, he only said that he was sorry that he left them a grandson, and he rarely visited them. The young lady's mother then asks him not to say so because their children have a new friend, and that's just great. But the men say that he should thank them for the breed, because even if this boy brings troubles, they are always kind to him. The parents of the young lady say that they are from, and Mikhail is very well-mannered and also curious, so she thinks that this is wonderful at his age. Razvartok then thanks the Duke for such words, and the main character at this time is eating her food, but suddenly she feels a close look and wonders if it is Mikhail. Well, when she raises her head, she sees that it is most likely Archduke Leventus. But when we look at him, the man just turns away in the other direction, and the little girl thinks, is it really just her imagination? But she still thinks that before he turned away, he smiled at the corners of his mouth. Now the Archduke asks the young lady's father if he has thought about going to the capital anytime soon. The man replies that he has, but the children are still young and he wanted to show up during the New Year's festival, because if he doesn't come, he will upset His Majesty. Brother and sister of the young lady at this time feed her with tasty treats, and the main character wonders if her father will really go to the capital, if you think about it. Last year, her parents left when she was kidnapped and were forced to return urgently, and after that day, they never went far. Mikhail's grandfather is now thinking, and then, when he puts down the cutlery, he claims that he doesn't think that going to the capital this time is a good idea. The young lady's parents then ask if something has happened to the man, who, after a short pause, claims that he has heard rumors from the palace. There was silence at the table after this about Her Majesty being pregnant. The main character wonders if people usually aren't happy about such news. But looking at her parents' faces, she sees that they are not happy at all now and wonders why their faces have become so gloomy. The main character starts using her powers and thinks that she should send Choco there. A little while later, the young lady's mother is already kissing her on the forehead and her brother too, as well as the little one with the pink hair. After which she also kisses Mikhail on the cheek and wishes everyone good night. The Archduke also wishes everyone good night, and Michael bows to him, and the lady with pink hair notices the man. He turns to his grandfather, and when he leans over, he asks what is going on. Then the little girl kisses him on the cheek and wishes him good night. The Archduke is a little surprised by this, and so are Michael and his friend. The Archduke strokes the baby's head, and then he turns to the main character. And she wonders why the Archduke is looking at her like that, and whether he really wants a goodnight kiss from her too. Well, when she sees his intense gaze again, she understands that there is nothing she can do, after which she extends her hands. The young lady's family then smiles and says that the youngest also liked the Archduke, after which the little girl kisses her grandfather's cheek, which makes him smile. He also strokes the girl's head and says that this is probably why this boy likes her so much. But the main character thinks that according to this logic, shouldn't he like his sister more, and she doesn't understand something at all. The brother and sister's rooms are on the second floor in the east wing, and hers is in the west, as is the guest bedroom. The young lady's brother and sister say goodbye to the little girl and say that they will see each other tomorrow, and the boy also wishes Mikhail goodnight. The blonde man also wishes them goodnight and waves to them together with the main character, after which they head to their rooms and the boy asks if this is the first time they will sleep together. The main character thinks that they will answer that they are in different rooms, and the boy then asks if he can go to her if he is scared. But the girl only thinks, isn't it the other way around that they call you to them when it's scary, and is he really afraid of ghosts? A little while later, they are already at the door, and Mikhail leans towards the little girl, after which she asks if he can come to her to wish her good morning, and the little girl agrees, to which the boy is a little surprised, and asks if she really allows it. And after that says that then he will definitely come, and promises that he will not wake her up. The main character understands that he apparently really likes doing this, and the boy then asks if she can do the same to him. The main character asks what he's talking about, and the guy then talks about the goodnight kiss she gave her grandfather. The little girl then thinks, what is this boy talking about now? The boy continues and says that she kissed Lorencia and Damien, and the main character thinks that it is because he is her brother's sister. Well, then the boy with puppy eyes asks if she can't see that he's not her family. The main character, then looking at him, thinks, what kind of pitiful look is this? And the guy says that she has never done that. And the little girl then thinks that okay. And since a 6-year-old child is asking for this, who is she? She will do it. After which she tells the boy to come over, and he does so. And when the guy approaches her, the baby kisses him on the cheek. And she wishes him good night, to which the young man smiles sincerely. After which he wishes the little girls good night and says that they will see each other tomorrow. Then the main character is put to bed by the maid, and the main character thinks that she is certainly not such an obedient child who will immediately go to Dreamland. After which she uses her powers and searches for where her parents and the Archduke are now. And looking into one room, she realizes that naturally they are alone in the living room. The main character mentally apologizes to her mom and dad for eavesdropping a little. And the man at this time says that it is confirmed and Her Majesty is pregnant, and besides, he was told that she would give birth next spring, to which the young lady's parents were surprised and said that it was so soon, after which the Archduke claimed that it was already the 5th month. The woman then says that she understands that 10 years have passed since they got married, but there was no news like this. And the Archduke at this time says that this is why the king prefers to remain silent, because they say that His Majesty's case is covered with ugly hair, and shouldn't they prepare? The main character then does not understand what they are talking about and what hair and what they mean in order to prepare. The little girl also does not understand what is happening between the duchies and the royal palace. The Archduke claims that by the new year, the youngest will be 3 years old, and it will be possible to go to the capital. But let them be careful, especially the Duchess. The main character at least thinks that they tried to maintain good relations with her family, but she does not understand why the current king could not ascend to the throne. The Archduke claims that the reason why His Majesty inherited the throne, it consists in the fact that the Duchess renounced the throne. The main character realizes that her birthplace is the kingdom of Farshan, which cannot be called peaceful, and even her mother before her marriage was in the midst of a struggle for the throne, with many heirs born to the previous king. While the brothers were putting each other into eternal sleep, there was a struggle for the throne. Her mother managed to survive, but she began to feel disgusted with the royal family, even though she was closest to the throne. But she left him and married the young lady's father. And thanks to this, her barely surviving and hiding half-brother Luxius became king. After listening to Choco, the main character realized that her mother's choice was the right one. And she doesn't know if Luxius thought about the shortcomings of his abilities, but he tried to maintain friendly relations with many aristocrats, and especially with the family of the Duke of Endevlan. He could not ignore the influence of the young lady's mother. After all, the Duchy of Endevlan has deep roots in the history of the Kingdom of Farshan, and my father personally took part in the war with the Empire several decades ago. The main character thought that only her family could keep the kingdom under control. But after hearing the story of Archduke Leventus, she became uneasy. The Archduke originally held the Principality of Leventus, and his family received its title in exchange for uniting with the Kingdom of Farshan to contain the empire. Initially, the Archduke was addressed as His Highness, but when the king noticed this, the Archduke voluntarily refused this address. Their main character understands that it was thanks to him that the empire did not swallow the kingdom, and they are in a state of confrontation and the man deserves better treatment. The main character thinks that if they are worried that the queen's pregnancy will change the relationship with Endevlan, what does it mean that the king is more ambitious than he seems at first glance, or is full of self-interest without any visible talents? The little girl thinks that he will cause problems in any case, but it doesn't matter because she will protect her family. The girl understands that she has already gone through these pleasant events dozens of times. In the 76th world, she was a lady-in-waiting and an artificial player. But one way or another, it's all in the past. A little while later, the 4th day of Michael and the Archduke's stay in the mansion began. Mikhail persistently asked her for a kiss with good morning and good night wishes, but other than that, she did not answer him, but he still came of his own free will, and now the boy came once again and said that morning training was coming soon, after which he asked if they would play a little before it. The girl thinks that this is really why he likes her so much, after which the girl sighs. A little while later, the maid turns to her and says that their younger mistress, no matter how much she resists today, will have to dress nicely because she is celebrating her master's birthday for the first time. The little girl thinks that they misunderstood because that is not why she is unhappy. And one of the maids says that their mistress will look beautiful today. Another maid offers to look at it because it is her new dress for today. She asks if it is cute and it is green, so the master will like it. The little girl then just looks at them in surprise and wonders if they are really treating her like a capricious child. She still can't accept this fact and thinks that she of course loves her brother and is not being capricious, but about what the maid says. It was all because of that boy with the blonde hair. Unlike her sister's party, her brother's birthday was relatively quiet, and the main character wonders if parties also depend on people's character. Mostly the boy was given books and writing materials. Once again, someone comes up to the boy and says that this is a collector's edition of theology sent by the Marquis in honor of his birthday, to which the boy expresses his gratitude. And the main character thinks that regardless of whether he liked the gifts or not, he accepted them as if his opinion did not matter. Suddenly, the boy's mother puts her hand on her husband's shoulder and then invites Damien to step outside for a moment. The boy then asks if they should go out, but then he listens to his mother and they go outside. The main character, when she sees her brother's gift, is a little surprised, and then smiles and sighs. After all, the little girl thinks that as expected from her parents, they have prepared a wonderful gift. The boy asks with admiration if they will really give him this, and he sees a pony in front of him. The father replies that yes, and he did say that his riding pillowcases have improved considerably, after which he also tells the boy to take good care of the pony. And the boy says that of course, and he learned this diligently from the knights. Mikhail and his grandfather watch this, after which the boy with blonde hair says that he likes big horses better, and his grandfather, without even looking at him, says that he knows. The main character, hearing all this, cannot understand whether their relationship is good or bad. After that, she learned that the Archduke and Michael will stay in the duchy until the sealing festival, and during this time she managed to get a little closer to the Archduke. He often visited the little girl and asked the younger duchess if he could hug her. The next day, he came again and asked if he could hug her. So the main character understands that the Archduke looks terribly like Michael. But today is the last day. On the morning of the sealing festival, the main character thinks that they will leave when they make donations to the temples. But they also called a priest to consecrate the Duke's residence. But suddenly the main character sees that Mikhail looks a little puzzled and wonders what is wrong with his expression. When the priest arrives, he gets out of the carriage and is told that they have arrived in the Duchy of Endovlan. The man just clicks his tongue and says he hates going there. The Duke thanks Togo for coming and also thanks him for lighting the residence. And the man only says that it is their duty, after which he turns around and approaches the box, asking if their donations are there for what? The man answers yes. The main character thinks why he counts money so openly, and he is a very unpleasant man. A little while later, the priest replies that the lighting is finished, and the mansion is so big that it was a little difficult. So he asks if he can have a cup of tea. The Duke replies that of course, and the main character thinks that since today is a holiday, it seems that the parents are trying to behave in a friendly manner. But they certainly don't like this priest, and he still ignores the Leventis family. But then the priest still looks at them with a look of complete disgust, and then comes closer. He asks if they have prepared gifts, and the Archduke says yes, after which the servant opens the box. The man says it's good that they didn't forget to honor God, and the Archduke claims that naturally, as a person living in this territory, he could not forget. The priest then says that it is true, and God is always watching him closely. And the main character realizes that she thought her first impression was wrong, but he crosses all boundaries. And so, he simply says that he is watching the Archduke. But the little girl still does not understand why they calmly tolerate such an attitude. The priest merely extends his hand to Michael's head and says that the temple cannot fail to notice the Archduke's conscientiousness, after which he begins to use his power, and the main character thinks that he has really gone crazy. After all, Mikhail has a magical power that has not yet formed. And if you bring energy into him like that, then, because of the overflowing mana, it will be very, very painful for him. When the priest finishes using his power, he says that the boy still cannot accept the power, and that someday the day will come, when God takes care of the younger Duke. Michael's grandfather only puts his hand on his shoulder, and the main character thinks that no matter how strong the influence of the temples is in the kingdom, can a priest really allow such a disrespectful attitude towards the Archduke? And those words about His Majesty's body being covered with ugly hair now seem to make sense. The little girl understands that this is none of their family's business, but these people have become like relatives to her. And it was the priest who tortured them before her eyes. Now the priest claims that this is not bad tea, and the main character wonders if she should just watch a man make money in such ways. The priest says that this tea is as beautiful as the donations to the temple, and the eggs laugh nervously and say that it is true. At this time, the little girl understands that she cannot do this, and we need to find out what he believes in, and also why he acts this way, having this power. Anastasia thinks that he won't leave so easily, after which she uses her power, causing the mug to fly out of the man's hands. And then he spills hot tea on himself, at the same moment jumping up from his seat and screaming that it's hot. The young lady's mother immediately screams for the maid to quickly bring cold water, and she agrees. The priest only says that it is enough and his work is finished, therefore as a servant of God he must return. But at this time the maid takes offense at the bucket of water, after which he catches it on the priest. Everyone just watches this in silence, and the young lady's mother then closes her baby's eyes, blushes with anger at such humiliation, after which he leaves and says goodbye to them. Well, the main character thinks she's not done yet, after which the priest slips and falls. Goethe when she asks if he's okay, and the man just says everything is fine. After which he turns around and tells them to call at any time if they need help, because God does not turn away from those who believe in him. The main character then wonders if he will really demand money again. But this man is driving her crazy. The baby realizes that she didn't mean to do this, but she still uses her power again and summons the wind. After this, the man's hair immediately flies away into the distance, causing him to turn pale. The main character understands that this politician will be the first to fly to God, and the priest falls to his knees and screams. The little girl smiles and thinks that a miser pays twice. When the priest finally leaves, they can all hold back their laughter, thinking about his bald head. The Duke asks why one who so sincerely worships the Lord hides this fact. And the Archduke says that he heard that in the past they deliberately shaved the top of the head and left hair only on the sides, which makes even the main character unable to hold back her laughter. Well, suddenly a young man with blonde hair approaches her and asks if he can hold the baby's hand. The main character, looking at Mikhail, thinks that fortunately everything is okay with him now. But this was the first time she saw such a worried face on his face, after which she took the guy by the hand. And he, with a smile on his face, asks if she decided to take the first one. And after that, Mikhail says what the priest did. Several times others have done the same, and they say that they cleanse him this way. But he doesn't like it because it upsets him and hurts. The main character is then shocked and thinks what kind of purification this is. Because if you introduce the sacred power of a person so randomly, then it will definitely hurt him. And for Mikhail, who possesses magic, this is tantamount to violence. And then the boy says that today the priest got into unpleasant situations, and for some reason it seems to him that it was because the little girl was nearby. The main character then wonders if he felt her magic, and maybe he has more power than she thought. But the guy then tells the little girl that he thinks that when he is next to her, everything is fine with him. The main character then realizes that most likely the reason why Mikhail continued to be sad and distant was that unfair things were done to him under the pretext of his fate, and all this time she saw herself in him. Now the main character holds his hand and says that everything will be fine. The girl thinks that she will protect Mikhail, and it's okay if another person appears whom she needs to protect. The guy, hearing this, just smiles and thanks the baby. A little while later, the Archduke claims that it is already the end of the year, and they are probably very busy before the trip to the capital. Well, the parents of the young lady say that there are not many applications for participation in the program this year. The guy's grandfather says that this is true and they have the same thing, but he just doesn't know if there will be people willing to participate in this with Mikhail. The main character understands that the Archduke is still worried about whether Mikhail will be chosen. The program consists of nobles bringing their children to their peers to spend time together, and this is one of the charity programs of this world that provides opportunities for education and payment in exchange for doing some tasks. And this is a kind of work for students. There have been dozens of applications to participate in this program with her brother and sister, and that's not bad. But it turns out that there are many more people who avoid Mikhail. Someone approaches the younger duchess, and it turns out to be the Archduke. He offers the little girl a farewell hug, to which she agrees. After which, the man takes the baby in his arms and says that she is still young and perhaps she does not like this boy, but he will be happy if the baby gets attached to him. The main character agrees and thinks that the Archduke is not without flaws, but he is very worried about Mikhail. Then the man enters the carriage and says goodbye to them, and the boy also waves to the little girl. The girl thinks that it was a good meeting. After that, due to the preparations for the New Year's ball, time flew by unnoticed, and the parents dealt with many things. Two were chosen to participate in the program with a brother and sister, and did not forget to provide a bonus for services at the end of the year. Within a month, the business was completed, and the first week of December arrived, after which they went to the capital, and now the little girl asks her mother why her father left without them. And the woman replies that dad is a duke and has a lot of things to do, so he left early. But they are still small and can get sick from driving fast. The lady with pink hair then says that it is a pity, after which it gradually begins to get dark and everyone in the carriage falls asleep. The main character understands that there are knights nearby, but she still needs to put up a protective barrier, after which she does so. The animals that saw the protective barrier did not dare to attack, and, fortunately, the 3 weeks of travel passed without any incidents. Now the knight claims that it is. Surprisingly, not a single beast came out, and another says that their swords will rust. A little while later, the children's mother reports that the capital is already beginning to become visible, and the little girl with pink hair asks if this is true. The main character looks at the street and thinks that the wind in the capital is cool but calm, but she doesn't understand where she gets this familiar strange feeling and premonition that a lot of trouble will happen. The woman tells the children that this is her homeland, and the main character understands that it seems there will be a lot of interesting things there. A little while later, the kids are already dressed in winter clothes and tell their mother that they are ready. The woman then says how cute they are, after which she suggests going to admire the city because the streets are beautiful at the end of the year. The main character realizes that her mother is there for the first time in a long time, and she seems to be very excited. But this is an ordinary carriage, not like a duke's, and the mother even put on a hat that covers her face. So the little girl wonders if they are really just going for a walk. The young lady's mother turns to Anastasia at this time and then leads her out of the carriage. On the capital's shopping street, there were many large stores incomparable with theirs. The little girl with pink hair said that they should look because Asha's favorite tiger was there. And the boy insisted that Anastasia liked the tiger he gave her more. The baby's mother then suggested going into this store, and the main character wonders if this is an ordinary store. Since she lived in harsh conditions, she thought that every action had its purpose. But now they were already in the fourth hall with clothes. And the little girl with pink hair shows her mother a ribbon and offers to buy it. The woman then says that they have already bought two, and the main character thinks that Lara uses polite speech only at such moments. And it is very cute. And the little girl at this time says that this ribbon is not for her, and her mother asks who it is for. After that, the lady with pink hair, whose gaze sparkled piercingly, took a step forward and, fixing her gaze on Aja, said that it was for her. After all, she most likely also dreams of the same ribbon, but she lacks the courage to ask. And as an older sister, Aja understands that she must take care of her and make her happy. The main character, looking tenderly at her sister, thought how commendable it was that she, being so young, had already achieved so much. The little girl, innocently batting her eyelashes, looked imploringly at her mother, as if praying that all these tempting toys and sweets would miraculously end up in her hands. The saleswoman in the store then tells the lady that the little girl with pink hair has such a kind soul and she will give it away at a low price, so let them take it. And the main character then thinks that she will have to thank her little sister for the beautiful red ribbon that she will give her. And the saleswoman at this time says that the mother is probably happy to have such loving children, and their duchess claims that she is happy that they are raising them safely. And the woman working in the store then claims that it would be good if His Majesty also had a child. The main character listens and thinks, isn't it known that the queen is pregnant? After all, rumors from the palace, of course, can slowly reach ordinary people. But it is known that next spring, the Queen of Rockets and everyone should know about it. Well, she doesn't think that Archduke Leventus was intentionally spreading false information because he always believed it was important to share only verified information and sought to maintain trust among his subjects and allies. After which, they all leave the store. But the young lady's brother, when he looks at his mother's face, sees that she is worried about something. He asks his mother about this, but she just smiles and says that it's nothing special and that she just hasn't been there for a long time. The main character, looking at her mother and her worried expression, thinks that she is most likely worried about the queen's pregnancy. But the baby does not understand what the problem is. After that, they went to other stores, but no one talked about the situation in the royal family. But this is long-awaited news about the child, so the baby does not understand why they are hiding it. However, while the question remains unanswered, time has flown by and the New Year's ball has arrived. I am now a woman saying that His Highness even invited the children at such a late hour. Looking at her babies, she wonders what the young man with pink hair is up to. A little while later, it is reported that the family of Duke Endovlan has arrived. All the people in the hall are delighted and say that the princess has finally arrived in the capital because so much time has passed and they so wanted to meet. And they also sent an invitation last year and the year before. The main character thinks that it is. Surprisingly, everyone in the room is friendly for some reason, but her mother is the only one who has been awarded the title of princess. However, it is strange that she is still called that and not a duchess, because she married the Duke of Endovlan a long time ago. The woman claims that the children are still young, so they were originally only going to arrive in a few years, but the women tell her not to say that. One of them claims that she thought that she would not be able to see babies like the princess and the Duke of Avia for a long time, but the princess's words upset her. The little girl understands that even though they belong to the Duke's family, they are still children, and they are treated the same as members of the royal family. And the little girl wonders if the aristocrats still don't know about the queen's child. Well, suddenly the hall announces that the reconciler of magic and divine power, the sovereign Farshan, His Majesty King Luxius, Her Highness the Queen have arrived. The main character then looks at the king and thinks that now they will see what he has planned. The man claims that he sees that everyone has arrived and of course it is an important day. Then he looks at us and my wife, who is pregnant and claims that today everyone must bow to the kingdom of Farshan.